Okay, it's 6 o'clock, and I see that we have a quorum, so I'm going to call the meeting to order. I am asking that, given the fact that I've been out of the country for the last 10 days, and Mark Howell has been kind enough to do a lot of the prep work for tonight's meeting, I'm going to entertain a motion to make Mark Howell the chair pro tem.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great. And now we need, go ahead.
We need a motion to nominate a clerk pro tem.
I'll volunteer to be a clerk.
Okay, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Wendy.
Thank you. We'll begin this evening with public comment. Public comment is for up to 15 minutes for items not otherwise on the agenda. 3 minutes per speaker. If you'd like to make a public comment, please come to the table. Begin with your name and your street. And please, if you have something, please feel free.
It might be on the agenda, but it might not be. I don't know.
Okay, you can ask us and we'll tell you.
Okay. So, Craig Omeller, 27 Lang Street. And I'm here just on my own. I mean, just as a citizen, don't represent anybody. I'm confused. I'm confused by the recent activity by the select board. I'll get to it very quickly. Because there were two votes about Ellen Garrison's town meeting, right? There was the amendment, which was also had an and in it. It was consider and change. And then there was also a vote not to entertain a sort of compromise, an offered compromise suggestion. And both of those things passed overwhelmingly, as you know, you were there. So I mean, I was puzzled by your statement that the committee had fulfilled their obligation. Because I don't see how they did. I understand they considered it, but then in order to dismiss it, which wasn't the actual article. And I was also confused because there was this last town meeting that was just held by Zoom, and so which was talking about retracting the ballot question. And that was retracted, it seemed to me, by a unanimous vote. When before, you'd stated that you felt that putting it to the ballot would be a more equitable and democratic and all that way to resolve the question. And then something happened. There was a turn. And I'm confused. And I certainly understand that you want to, I mean, people talk about the town being divided and heal the town, but in my opinion, the town doesn't need healing because it's not sick. We're just voting. And there's people on each side and in the middle, and we're voting. And I know how I vote, you know how I feel. And I just don't want to start going down a trail where if you insist on the democratic process or you hope the town follows it, the school committee follows it, that's divisive or unusual even. Because to me, we're just doing what all towns do. So I would my ask is that I would like more information, if you can provide it, about what happened between that one town meeting where you put it on the ballot and then the next town meting where you pulled it. Mm-hmm. I'd like to know, just as a voter or citizen.
Yep. Craig, I'm gonna hold that and ask if there's any other public comments about anything else or this again. And then we'll try to address it as a constellation of questions. Yes?
Can I speak?
Sure, absolutely.
Mary Weinberg, 26 Hillside Avenue. I was at the hearing for the battery after the selectmen's meeting about a month and a half ago, and I was there by accident, but then I heard for the first time about the battery. The presentation was made by Jason Boger, and at the end, and he put a map up on the screen, and I asked him to be more specific at town meeting so we can understand where it was. This is what they did at town meeting. The question I asked that night was, where is it? And then at town meeting, which I discussed with the light plan, I had a series of questions. I stood at the question microphone. None of those questions were really answered. It's like drawing blood. To me, the answer from the fire department is, we would know what to do if it went on fire. I'm one, and maybe nobody else cares. That is not a sufficient answer for me to say we would know what to do. It's also not a sufficient answer for me for the light plan to say it's safe. I tried to find out where exactly Knox Trail was and where is this parcel, W.R. Graceland. So a friend of mine and we went down Knox Trail, and I feel that although Cameron and Wendy, you didn't vote on this, but the select board did vote on this, and I really hope that all of you, including our town manager, go to Knox Trail and see it's a dump. This is even before you get to the area. I could not get down, it's this private road where the solar is. So I went to Natural Resources to try to get a map, because this is the only thing we got at town meeting. This is the first map I got. Second map, couldn't understand it. So they very nicely said, come back and we'll work with you. Well, they're very nice, but all they could give me was this, which is still not understandably, but at least it shows where the river is and how close the solar is. And this is the WR base. And then, by the way, on the map, this is where I live. This is the parcel here, and this is where I live on Hillside Avenue. And also people live here. So I'm very upset, and I hope you don't mind. I am upset and I'm mad because the questions have not been answered. And I do not want to go to the light plan and ask these questions, because I've been through this before, 40 years ago, because their answer is going to be to me, which I asked at town meeting, we will know what to do and it's safe. So I'm going to the selectmen first, and I will write a detailed letter with you, give you all the copy, with a copy to the light plant and a copy to the Concord Bridge, because I feel that this is unfair. I know that the town wants it, and I'm not trying to stop it, but I think it hasn't been vetted out enough, and I really hope you'll all go to see where Knox Trail and what's going on there. And that's it for tonight.
Thank you. We'll go to Zoom. Pamela Dritt, please.
Pamela Dritt, 13 Concord Green.
Thanks. We can
I
hear
really
you.
appreciate your putting the information attached in the meeting packet for us so that we can see it. Thank you very much. I would ask that you include all the letters that you get, not a selection of them, so that we can see when people are upset by things, as well as when people are happy. Mm-hmm. The open meeting is a wonderful thing that will help us. The more transparency, the less fear and unhappiness there is. So please publish everything that you get.
Thank you, Pamela.
As a group.
We did work on a policy last time
We did.
for correspondence, and we are now publishing all the correspondence on a dedicated webpage. I just checked, and I noticed that correspondence link is not actually linked to the agenda, but it is separate from the packet, and if you go to the select board page on the town website, you can follow the link there to take a look at correspondence that's going in. And Shannon, thank you. She's bringing it up on the screen right now. It's organized by week with, I believe, every letter that meets our criteria. And some of the things that are amongst those criteria is that it can't be anonymous, so we need to know who the letter came from. And there's a few other requirements as well that are spelled out in our policy, including no personal attacks or anything of that nature. But basically, if the letter is of that format, it's being published there. So thanks for that opportunity to publish that. Okay. Are there any other public comments?
Mark, that's great that you addressed that question. And is there a way that we can address the other two comments, maybe not tonight, but for example, on the solar, can we ask the town manager to reply to Mary's questions or?
Yeah.
And I think you said maybe that you were going to answer the.
Yeah, I think that it probably is worth, especially since this is a regular meeting and we held a special meeting, to just briefly comment on the fact that we did hold a special meeting last Friday. That meeting was held primarily in response to a sentiment that came up at this board at our last regular meeting when we did vote to put a question on the ballot to actually essentially put the Article 22 question back on the ballot for the special meeting. At that point, the school committee had not had a chance to meet and take action themselves. The very next day, they did do that, and I clearly had a sense that this board wanted to be able to consider what response the school committee did in fact make to the ask. And if you remember, the framing of Article 22 was ask for reconsideration and ask for, and urged a specific name. So at least my sense personally was that they were asked to do that, and they did in fact reconsider it, and they in fact took action. And when we do get to the minutes of that meeting, which are still in process, you'll see that my full statement from that meeting is included there. But I believe that since town meeting was asking them to do those, to take that into consideration, that they did do that, and that's the sense in which I meant that they fulfilled their responsibilities. As far as the question of the ballot question, that was what the select board then considered, was given that they had taken a specific and definitive action on the name of the school, at that point, did it make sense in our estimation to then ask the community to revote that a month later? And given the information that we had at the time, we made the decision that as a board, we did not think that and voted 4-0. Mary was not in attendance at that meeting, to remove that question from the ballot. Now, this is where your question touches on action we're going to take today. Since that time, and there is a memo in tonight's packet, we have found that the Elections Division of the Secretary of State's Department has determined that these types of advisory questions are only available to be placed on the ballot by the Select Board when it is a regular town election, not a special town election. And that's why at tonight's meeting later, we will consider whether it is advisable under those rules to remove the other questions that we had decided to pose for the town meeting study committee. And so that's why we're taking that action. I hope that clarifies it. Thank you. Okay. And I would just note that I think it's fair game to ask us about our procedures. That's certainly.
Yeah?
For sure. Absolutely.
Okay. With that, and seeing no other hands raised for public comment, we can move to the consent agenda.
Yeah, so a couple questions on the consent agenda.
Sure.
So I'm looking at what was sent out to us in the meeting packet.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm looking at what I just saw here,
Right,
and it's not the same.
okay.
And so the first thing is, it looked to me like we had two folks, so under committee nominations,
Yes,
in the electronic packet, we had two folks that looks like they've dropped off on the printed page. So Louis Caldarella on the Historic District Commission and Natalia Sternberger on the DEI.
Yeah, you're correct, that those should be on here.
They should be on.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. So the electronic version is correct. I'm just looking and I'm just like, okay, I didn't see it on the paper.
Yeah.
yeah, let me,
Thanks for catching
I just want to
that.
make sure
I mean,
start off the
that's a-
starting point is I want to make sure we're looking at the right.
Yeah.
I want to make sure we're all,
Yeah.
just so we know.
all right, and those are on, I'm just checking now, those are on the electronic version of the agenda as published under
They are.
items 3 and 4.
Yes, items 3 and 4 of item G.
Right,
Yep.
and I'm just gonna,
And 4 of G.
yeah. Good.
Okay.
So it's okay, Louis. Okay.
So sorry, but that was just adding, or making sure that we're all
Yeah.
clear that that those are
So that we will
included.
vote
Natalia.
those,
Yep.
yes.
And then, I'm sorry, I'm being a procedural guy today, but
Good.
a question on the proclamations.
Yes.
So the proclamations themselves for Juneteenth and Pride Fest
Mhm.
include in the proclamations the raising of the flags.
That's right.
But we're later separately,
That's right.
Right.
So we should be taking them off the
Let's
consent
take them off
agenda.
that's all. I
consent
just want to
calendar.
do it like.
No,
let's
you're
not
right.
do it
I was
twice.
gonna
Yeah,
ask
okay.
the same
All right.
thing.
That's
So it's
great.
just
Yep.
We'll take them off.
take them off the
Yes.
consent, because we're going to address it.
Exactly.
Yeah, we
Right.
can
Make sure we-
decide, take an action
We can-
around the flag raising.
And then
Circle
we'll,
I'm
back.
sorry, and then we can always go ahead and approve the proclamations.
right, we'll go back and do
Yes.
the
Yeah,
proclamations.
I just didn't want to
Good idea.
do it
Yeah.
Right.
and then, I don't know.
Yeah.
Just-
Okay, so for those of you watching at home, if you haven't actually read the proclamations, each of the proclamations does sort of contemplate that the flag raising has already been approved, and yet that's later in our agenda. So what we're talking about here is that we would just take them off the consent agenda so that we can take whatever action we're going to take relative to approving a flag raising, and then consider the proclamation as adopted? We adopt proclamations?
We do.
Or do we just make proclamations?
I don't know.
Okay,
I
Don't
don't know
worry
if we
about
make
it.
or don't.
It's
All
okay.
right.
Don't-
great.
Okay.
Any other comments or?
Yeah, I have a question
concerns
about the nominations specifically. Have these nominations are all of these individuals people that have been interviewed by the liaison to these committees?
Cortland Booth
these-
has been.
Or are these being nominated by the committee itself?
Well, in the case of Andrew Herchick, that's a school board,
Yeah.
Okay?
a school committee representative to the middle school building committee.
So that's,
And we did have a question of whether that's direct to nominate or just direct to appointment
Right.
or not. So, but we thought it would be safer to just nominate and then appoint.
that's fine, that's fine.
Anyway,
I do know the school committee voted.
they
So
did.
they're nominating him?
Yes, they're
basically.
Yeah,
definitely
they're
nominated.
nominating
Okay,
him,
what
so.
about Lewis Cald?
So the Historic District Commission is nominated him. I did not interview.
I think I would like to have, it's the select, my opinion, it's the select board's role to nominate and appoint people to committees. So I think we should at least check with the person and make sure that it's a good fit before, instead of, in addition to getting the recommendation from the board. So I'd like to table this for the next meeting.
Well, may I suggest, since it's 2 weeks until our next meeting, this is the nomination time, and between now and when we appoint the person, Cam, are you the
Yeah, I mean, I'm,
liaison? Yeah,
Could,
it would be me on
Yeah.
the,
She was this,
I just wanted to have Shannon provide a quick response regarding that appointment.
Yeah, just that for the HDC, he's going to be representing the Concord Museum, so I know they've also nominated him. but that's the first step in their process.
The HDC has a separate procedure that's
Okay.
part of their
Alright.
legislation.
Oh, so it's,
Yes.
got it. So it's really not the select board that,
No, it's
I don't
almost.
think, that was not my impression.
Okay,
So, I mean, it's
okay.
my first time going
Okay.
through it, so just to be
Okay.
honest, like, they said, look, the museum has put forth, we're good with it, that's who we want to nominate.
okay.
The
Okay,
select
that
board
makes
has
sense.
2 representatives on the HDC, but then, right, there are these 4 other nominating bodies. for-
Okay, okay, I'm
That's
good, I'm good with that.
interesting,
How
Okay.
It's very different.
how about the DEI?
The DEI Commission, I've talked to the chair, and I have not personally talked to Natalia, but I would be happy to do so before
We
you
appoint.
appoint.
Great,
Sure.
okay, good.
So that brings up something we agreed to do a few months ago, which was at some point this year, hopefully, look at the charge for the HDC, and so that we understand it better even. So I'm hoping we can do that.
Okay. All right, so far,
Go ahead.
I'm just saying, so far, we're taking the proclamations, those are items FI1 and F1 and F2, let's call it that. And we're going forward with the nominations as they appear. Anything else?
Weren't there amendments or changes to the meeting?
There were. So we have distributed in front of us some amendments, so some corrections, let's call them, to the May 20th minutes, as well as there were electronically distributed some additional corrections. So hopefully everybody's had a chance to review those for the May 13th meeting as well.
Yep, I did.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Any other questions, comments, or concerns about the consent agenda? Am I hearing a motion?
I will make a motion that we approve the consent agenda with, after we, assuming that we're removing the proclamations, and that we will agree to interview the individuals who are nominated before our next meeting.
Okay,
And the minutes as amended.
And the minutes as amended, thank you.
great.
So I just want to be crystal clear, we're approving all 4 nominations.
Yes.
But we are saying, hey, let's make sure we can.
Make sure we've seen them. If we haven't already talked to them, we'll directly about this. I'm not saying I've never talked to this person, just to be clear.
Okay, second. I will second Wendy's motion.
And
All in favor?
Aye.
I,
Aye.
okay,
Thank you.
thank you. And now we come to committee appointments. These are previously nominated appointments.
So all of these people have been interviewed, I think, like the MCI Advisory Board, I know
Yes,
Mary and Mark, you've been
We've
interviewing.
interviewed them
Right,
quite a bit.
quite a bit. We have talked with them quite a bit.
right. And Greg Higgins has been interviewed.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, so, read the whole thing. I will move to appoint Greg Higgins of 51 Cottage Lane to the Economic Vitality Committee for an unexpired term to expire on May 31st, 2025. Move to appoint the following candidates to the MCI Concord Advisory Board for a term to expire December 31st, 2025, with the option of reappointment at the discretion of the Select Board. Linda Miller of 300 Main Street, Patrick McCurdy of 1100 Monument Street, Peter Lowett of 5 Westvale Drive, Scott Bates of 52 Indian Spring Road, Lee Smith of 1836 Main Street, John Boynton of 72 Chestnut Street, Aaron Cusker of 61 Comerford Road, Emily Rush of 122 Upland Road, Elizabeth Ackhurst Moore of 86 Holdenwood Road, and Dan Gainsborough of 12 Mill Run Lane.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous.
Okay. Town managers report?
Okay, thank you. And I just wanted to note that Shannon pulled up the MCI Concord Advisory Board webpage that is
Nice.
available, just so you could see that.
Is that an icon on the main page? Does that replace the MBTA communities?
I think it,
Looks like
I
it's
think
under
we're
the
meeting
town
with
managers.
These appointments to go through.
Okay.
And then we're gonna have a button up
Right.
here on the home.
And you think it will replace the MBTA communities? Great, good, thank you.
So, can we get to it from boards and committees?
So there is a board and committee page for MCI Concord. To get to the page that you were just at is from the town manager's webpage. And then if you go to related projects. Oh, no, there we go. MCI closure, there we go.
But again, we'll have an icon on the homepage
Okay.
shortly.
Very good, thank you.
All right. Referring to the report of May 24th that was previously distributed, I wanted to make mention that the poetry phone booth is live. We'd like to thank Aaron McCloskey, who is our Highway and Ground Superintendent, Steve Dukran, our town engineer, for their work on this project, and encourage people to stop by and pick up the phone and listen to an original poem. There's some information about police department activity. I wanted to note that the police department assisted with the Bike to School event for the Alcott School on May 16th. And make note that we have a new officer, Officer Athlon Addie Wood, who was sworn in on May 20th by Town Clerk Kari Tari after recently completing her program at Merrimack College. The Historical Commission is involved in the historic preservation planning process. There is a survey that is live on the website and a request that both residents and non-residents take the opportunity to fill out that survey and provide some feedback on, particularly on the historic resources in town that they value and take pride in, preservation goals, and other key questions for the community. I don't want to provide updates on reports, your liaison reports, which I sometimes step on other people, but I did want to mention that Housing and Livable Communities accepted the town's economic feasibility study for the 20% affordability requirement for the MBTA community zoning multifamily zoning, and we're still awaiting the pre-adoption review of the zoning bylaw. Hopefully nobody was going to mention that. The ZBA on May 16th continued the hearing on our second 40B project, the 275 Forest Ridge Road, residences at Thoreau, to July 25th at 7 p.m. The chair noted that the applicant was in the process of redesigning the project based on issues and concerns raised at the first public hearing. There's a note in the report that Ann Clifford, our senior planner who works with the CPC, has completed an audit of all 38 open CPA or CPC projects, and that information is available on the website, and she's currently in the process of drafting the required memorandum of understandings for each of the 19 CPA projects that were approved at town meeting last month. A note, which I'm sure you saw while I was away, that we have a water use restriction. Level 1 update. CPW wants to remind the community that we are currently in a Level 1 water use restriction, which limits lawn watering to 1 day per week. And there's additional information in the weekly report and also online. Also a note that our annual Safe Drinking Water Act annual report is available to the community. It is available in digital format. This is the 12th year that the town has issued the report in electronic format, but there are a limited number of paper copies available at various locations across the community, including both post offices, Crosby's, here at the townhouse, at the library, etc. A note that our COA had a recent outing to the New England Botanic Garden at Tower Hill. And the reason I wanted to mention this is I just hope that seniors are aware that we do offer a lot of nice programming through our Council on Aging, including trips, field trips to different locations that are available at fairly low cost, and particularly anybody who's not able to get out and around easily on their own, please take a look at what we offer at the COA. If I could just indulge you for another moment, because there are 2 reports. I wanted to note that our Risk and Procurement divisions recently held staff training on contracted administration and municipal procurement. And the reason I mention this is we have received a handful of emails from the public questioning procurement practices. And so I just wanted to highlight that this is a regular thing that we do, and our staff is now hosting a monthly procurement hour, where they each month will be raising topics of particular interest. The procurement law in Massachusetts is not the easiest thing. There are 3 different statutes that govern procurement depending upon the type of project or purchase that's being contemplated. And when you're not doing this on a regular basis, it's not necessarily easy to remember all of the applicable rules and regulations. So we have a concerted effort and additional staff resources dedicated in this area. Our IT department, in conjunction with the town manager's office, is co-hosting Zoom security practices training on, today. We had some today and tomorrow. Tomorrow's training is at 11 a.m., and then on June 12th, again at 1 p.m., all licensed Zoom users are required to attend this training and security update. There's information in the packet about the upcoming special election, which you'll be talking about. Some nice updates on recent completion of paving activity in multiple neighborhoods in the community. We have our 3rd IT technician who started today. This is the first time that I can remember that all 3 IT technician positions have been filled. So I know we're happy about that. And then there's some notes about, we have a lot of seasonal staff that have come back, including through our ranger and conservation programs, and some more information in the packet about that. And did you want me to say anything about the battery project? Or
What do you?
maybe just 1 minute?
Yeah, sure.
I don't know that it's an update, but Mary, you held up a picture of the map that had the blue and the green, and I just wanted to note that the one that was at town meeting that splits the town into 2 sides, and the request for town meeting was to approve a battery project in what we call Bus 2 on one side of town. We had talked or identified that the likely site for that was the W.R. Grace property. I think, when we started talking about it as the W.R. Grace property, I think we've just felt that over the past years, we've talked about that property so much, we took for granted that people understood where that property was. But Knox Trail is really on the far outskirts of West Concord. One side of the road is Acton, the other side is Concord. The school's bus depot is down there. We have the large solar array that's down there. So it's not a foregone conclusion that that's the site, but that is the likely site. I know that Mrs. Weinberg has asked a lot of questions. I think the CMLP staff, in particular Jason Bulger and Laura Scott, have spent some time trying to answer those questions to the best of their ability at this point in the project. We don't have all of the answers, but I would encourage anybody who's interested to follow the light board, because the light board and the light plant staff, that is the appropriate venue and place to raise those questions.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Quick question, Carrie. Thank you for that report. You said that there will be a training required for all the licensed Zoom meisters. I'm not sure if is that staff people? The reason I ask is we have some volunteer committees that don't necessarily have a staff person doing Zoom, but a volunteer on that committee is going to be running the Zoom, and which I learned all of this last week because I'm working with the 250th, trying to get it on Zoom. And so I was confused about what a licensed Zoom user is and what happens if it's a committee that's volunteers.
Yeah, so we're starting the training with the licensed users. So there are certain people who have a Town of Concord issued Zoom license. Most of those people are staff. I'm not going to say that 100% of them are staff, but that's where we are starting.
Okay. So at some point, you might also offer training for some volunteers?
For volunteers who may be put in the position of running.
Right, we have that situation in at least two
Yeah.
committees, probably more.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I think ideally, anybody who's gonna run the meeting as the host should be, we should be
Yeah.
trying to reach them for that training.
Right, I think the issue is balancing, here's a volunteer's time, we don't want to take, that now they're volunteering for extra duties to do the Zoom, but we don't have any staff people to do it either, but we don't want to put too much of a burden on the volunteer, but we want to make sure we have enough security and enough transparency. So we have a lot of things to balance.
Yeah, so I appreciate that feedback. I will make a note and follow up with the staff that's doing the training. We have been trying to identify boards and committees that don't have regular staff support and giving them a staff liaison. Not necessarily somebody who's going to attend their meetings, but a staff point of contact for
Correct.
assistance.
However, the staff liaison is too busy to also attend all their meetings and be the Zoom meister, so.
Right.
So that's why I brought it up.
Yeah,
Okay,
thank
thank you.
I have a question, too. Okay. Carrie, I'm reading the town manager's report, and in there's a section on the planning board, and it talks about how they finalized their goals and projects for the next year.
Yeah.
And there's actually several goals and
Yep.
projects listed here. And I guess I have two concerns. One is, when you have this many goals, priorities, it's hard to figure out which was really your priority. But more importantly, when do we ensure that the goals and priorities that boards and departments within the town identify for themselves align with the goals that the select board develops and the goals that the select board gives to the town manager as far as how we would like, things we would like to have prioritized? And the reason I'm saying this is because I know that the business community within Concord is very interested in looking at the parking regulations as it applies to keeping economic vitality here in town. We don't want empty storefronts. And that's only one of many things that it looks like the planning board. So I guess my question is, when boards have their goals, can they be reprioritized based on the goals that the select board sets for ourself and the goals that the select board sets for the town manager's office?
I think that is a terrific question. That is something that I was hoping to talk to you about when we have our first meeting later this week.
Okay.
I do think in general, boards and committees, this board, other boards, there's not necessarily the best cohesive annual work plan.
Right.
And I think historically, we have allowed boards and committees to self-identify
Right.
their goals. And I think it would be extremely beneficial to the community if we had a more cohesive annual plan, and each board and committee and department could see how it fit into that. So
Great.
hoping to talk to you about that on Wednesday.
Okay, we'll talk on
Okay.
Wednesday.
That's great.
Thank you.
I noticed that the leaf blower ban also went into effect a
Yesterday.
couple of days ago.
I saw
Has
that
there
on social
First
media.
phase of it or something?
Yeah,
been any, yeah,
June
for
1st.
Oh, good question.
June 1st through September? Has there been any
Complaints?
immediate?
You know, I haven't heard anything. I did see that on social media and made a note I needed to revisit that because that was a year ago annual town meeting. I did have my regular meeting with the CPW director today, and he did not mention any complaints. So I don't know that we have had any yet. I would expect we will hear
Have a
about
few.
that. Yes.
Well, that's pretty good. We had 4 days without a complaint. I'm happy.
Yeah.
People were
How about
busy.
that?
Yeah, we should
Set the
probably,
bar low.
people were busy graduating over the last 4
Yeah,
days, I
Celeste, don't
think.
write that down in the.
All the leaf blowing was already done.
That's good, Terry.
But, and congratulations to all the graduates.
Yeah.
And their parents.
And their parents, sure. Okay, liaison reports.
Where do you want to start? So I'll start. I don't have any major updates. I've been working with chairs and having them assess their membership criteria and charters, and so that's moving forward. There'll be many nominations forthcoming. Just to the planning board, which sounds like there was definitely an update in the report, but the planning board's goals, I will just note, the MBTA community zoning regulation has to be followed up on. They did make a point to review our 2030, Envision Concord 2030. So to your point about how are we sort of synchronizing and keeping alignment with our goals, I did note that they do make an effort to do that.
Okay.
But there's many goals in that 2030
Yeah.
plan, so how do you really narrow it down and prioritize it?
They had a lot, yes.
There is a lot. There are other goals around the parking rules and regulations. So that one they had heard from the select board, and that's definitely on their list. So that,
Good.
I was glad to hear that. They
Good.
had a good discussion
I
on
am
that. There'll be some housekeeping things in there as well, but, I won't go through the details. It's in the report here, but that's moving forward. So that's really all I have for an update.
Okay. So tomorrow night is the June 4th forum with the 2229 Main Street Task Force. I believe that's at 7 p.m. in this building, the town hall. I urge everyone to come, listen to a brief presentation, and the most important thing is to ask questions. We need to get the public's feedback, because after that task force will be coming to the select board, and within a few months, they're going to issue their final report, and the select board is supposed to then decide whether to keep moving along toward acquisition or not. There are some very important topics I urge everyone to attend, either live or by Zoom. And another item, I went to the HFAC, which is the Hanscom Field Advisory Commission. This board asked me to find out whether the members there were going to endorse and sign the Conservation Law Foundation. So it was on their agenda, but several members hadn't read it yet, and it's a very long letter, and they weren't prepared. Anyway, they decided to sign as individuals if they wanted.
Okay.
And also another thing that came up at that meeting, actually, I brought it up, that we had had some noise complaints during Patriots' Day at the North Bridge. And is there some way they could resist flying over that bridge for 1 hour on April 19th, 2025? The chair then said, okay, we need to request from the FAA and Massport to have a no-fly zone for the entire day, April 19th, 2025. So they're going to go ahead and do that. Except if the president arrives, he will have to fly in. But this is a kind of an exciting development.
Can I just, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I just wanted to mention that the Air Force Base is planning a special flyover, which I'm sure members of that group are aware of, but just please
Actually,
take that
they
into
weren't. So all of that needs to be
Okay, right.
coordinated.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. I think maybe the no-fly zone is for other private jets and just to have the Air Force. So, because as you know, there's two parts to Hanscom, and they don't necessarily even talk to each other, right? So there's a lot more planning to do, but these ideas are floating around, so it's a first step. And then finally, on May 30th, I went to the Zoom meeting where the developers of the proposed Hanscom expansion presented. There were 280 people on Zoom. Wendy, were you there?
No, but everybody had to be, because it was a Zoom call. There was too much demand.
No, I mean, were you on Zoom?
I started and I had
Oh,
to
because
drop.
you were nodding like you.
Yeah.
Okay, so there were 280 participants, and there were many, many objections to the data and the analysis on the ferry flights. and many people were asking for them to redo their analysis, and so we'll see how that goes. That's it.
All right, Cameron?
Excuse me, no major updates, other than the retirement board. I have connected with all the different committees, so that's gotten me over a good starting point. And really, so nothing major to report. Obviously, with the Historic Commission, had the appointment that we
Great.
at least approved the nomination for. So
Okay.
I'll leave it at that.
Anything from you, Mary?
Yeah, this comes to us via, actually, Keith Bergman. As you know, Concord had a home rule petition for a local transfer fee to help us fund affordable housing here in Concord, and the governor also included the local transfer fee in the Affordable Homes Act, but the House Ways and Means Committee reported out today did not include the local transfer fee.
Why? Do we know why?
I think there's opposition from people.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think we knew that the real estate
Right.
lobby was, anyway. But it's not dead yet. There's a amendment being filed by Rep. David Belouf David LeBoeuf, I should know that. David LeBoeuf from Worcester, and Worcester's a gateway city, so they have a little bit more influence in these types of things, and so he's filing an amendment. And also Chris Carmody from the town manager's office wrote a very nice letter to Representative Cataldo asking for his support for the amendment. So House Ways and Means didn't include it, but there will be an amendment. We'll see how that goes.
Okay.
Mary, could I just mention, just from Chris's letter that he sent over to
Yep.
Rep. Cataldo,
Yep.
that some of the pushback has been that the $1 million threshold is too high.
You're right.
That communities in Western Mass, I think, would be supportive of it if it was a lower number than $1 million, the sales price.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, that's all I got.
All right, and for me, we're working on to stand up the advisory committee. The town meeting study task force, town meeting study committee is also busy and unfortunately meeting tomorrow night. So that's what comes with committees. The middle school building committee is also taking an extra meeting this week as we look at a change request for FF&E, which is furniture, fixture, and equipment, which we don't have details on as of yet. That package hasn't been published, but for those people who are tracking that. The Warner's Pond Task Force is also meeting, although for people following that, I suggest that you watch carefully because there's some scheduling and rescheduling. So if you're trying to follow the task forces, there are a lot of them. They're moving kind of fast, sometimes meeting more than once a month, and so I'd encourage you to be diligent. And most people are probably aware of this, but you can sign up to get automatically notified about agenda postings for any such things. So as we try to take more advantage of task forces to get work done, that's kind of the price we pay. And, I put a plug in for Zoom. These meetings are recorded, so you can go there and hear them if you don't want to choose, just like any other streaming service. With that, are we ready to move on to item number, I don't have the number, but the vote to approve the non-binding advisory questions? So, okay. So this, as I alluded to earlier, is a result of some additional research done by the town clerk and the staff. That uncovered the fact that according to the Elections Bureau of the Secretary of State's Department, advisory questions on town ballots are restricted to regular town elections and not special town elections. There is a memo about this in our packet today under, and I don't have the page in front of me, but it is in there, and which explains this in more detail.
48.
Thank you. But the action that we would need to do for housekeeping reasons really is vote to remove those non-binding advisory questions that we approved for the town meeting study committee from the June 25th special election ballot so that those materials can be printed and distributed.
I move to remove the non-binding advisory questions from the special town election ballot for the special town election on June 25th, 2024.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Any discussion?
Discussion.
I think we have to, right? I mean, it's
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah, no
not legal,
choice.
so.
yeah.
let's be legal.
All right, all in favor then?
Aye.
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 Okay.
Yeah, and just to be clear, and, you know, this information came to us after the previously discussed select board meeting. Okay. All right, moving on. So the next item on the agenda is to review and approve requests for food trucks on the Concord Pride Fest on June 22nd. And do we have a presenter?
It's going to be me.
Thank you, Megan.
We have a few staff who are unexpectedly out this evening, so
Okay.
I will fill in. But we also have co-chair of the DEI Commission, Joe Palumbo, here, so I might call on you, Joe, if we need some follow-up. But there is a lovely event that's being planned on Saturday, June 22nd. This is an event sponsored by the DEI Commission and several town departments, including the Recreation Department, the library is participating. There's support lended through Public Works and through the Police Department. And this event is going to have is hoping to have 3 food trucks as part of the event. And for our our recently adopted at last year's town meeting, food truck regulations, if you're going to have more than 2 food trucks at a public event on a public way, you need select board approval. So we have had food trucks for other items or other events in the past, but there hasn't been 3. So this is why this is one of the first ones coming to you. We,
So I'm sorry, there hasn't been 3 before in Concord, or just since we?
that's right, it's been just about a year since food trucks have been permitted. It was the 2023 town meeting where the bylaw was passed, and we have set up internal protocol for how we approve it. We have on our website, we have a list, an active and updated list of the food trucks that have gone through the Board of Health's permitting. And so we encourage, that's an annual permit, we encourage event planners to choose from that list so that they're already permitted and squared away. And so this event has chosen 3 food trucks that are permitted through the Board of Health in the town of Concord. And there's a memo and a map in the packet that shows where they're going to go. And happy to
Page
entertain
50.
any questions.
Will they show up?
I hope so.
Is
A
there-
lot of times when we invite food trucks, they are small businesses that are reliant on, what is the crowd going to be like? What
Right.
is how is it going to be for them for a profitable day? But there has been a lot of excitement about this event,
Okay.
and so I know that the organizers have been, sharing that they think it's going to be popular. So I think it wouldn't be one to miss.
So on the screen, we're seeing the Kais Road
Yeah.
parking lot, and the areas where the trucks would be parked is that section that's being highlighted there. And maybe let's just show the top half of that same page. So just for other reference, this is a map of Concord Center and outlines the general schedule. There are going to be a number of events being held at Tricon, at the Umbrella, at the library throughout the day, roughly 10:30 to 3:30 p.m., I think, in Concord Center, and then continuing over on West Concord during the day. So hopefully that's enough to attract these businesses.
Hope so.
And
So Twisted Pickle, is
Yeah.
that just pickles?
I'm not.
Yeah,
It's fried pickles?
it's supposed to be very good.
Okay, I'll have to try it.
all right, and I think at least one is ice cream, right?
Yes.
Remember the packet?
Nice
So
ice
there we
cream.
go.
Cookies
Yeah.
and pickles.
Ice cream
Hey,
and cookies.
Yes.
stock up.
Okay, we'll see.
Any other questions?
No, I mean, it just, this is just the first time that we've approved for 3. Is there any, like, precedent or criteria for it, or it's just sort of, just depends on the event, or, I just didn't know if there's,
So are we responding to applications that have been made by these truck owners? So I guess,
So
Well,
this,
the
this one in
event.
particular, there are a couple of different ways that a food truck application could come here. But this one is part of a town use permit process. So this has been vetted by a large group of town staff. We meet twice a month to review applications for use of town property and coordinate the specific requests and, you know, potential issues that could come up, like the location of where these will be, and to make sure there's no negative impact on traffic flow, to make sure the Board of Health has signed off on, you know, any vendors and that kind of thing. So this has been vetted. I think that the thought behind 3 or more is to have a closer eye on the impact to the public way. And actually, this one, the 3 are not even located together. One is going to be over at the Hunt Gym, and the other 2 are in the municipal parking lot and spots that have been identified.
Okay.
But I think that, you know, an item that the board might consider in the future is really the impact to the public way, and if you felt like it was an appropriate location.
So Megan, I had a question. Can there only be 2 food trucks in the Kais Road parking lot from just a space and safety? Is that a limiting factor there? Just kind of curious.
I wouldn't say so. I think we
Okay.
would entertain proposals for more than 2. This is how this event coordinator
Yep.
decided to lay them out.
But still good pilot to see how the traffic flows and all that, so it's all good.
right, I mean, over towards the visitor center might be pretty good separation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. No, it looks like a well-organized event, so. that's
Okay.
great. We'll be ready for a motion?
Yes.
Okay, so I move to approve the request for food trucks for the Concord Pride Fest on June 22nd, 2024, with 2 trucks to be located at the public parking lot off of Kais Road and 1 truck to be located in front of the Hunt Building at 90 Stowe Street.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Good luck. This is going to be exciting.
Yeah?
Okay. Moving on in our agenda to the review to approve the request of flying the Juneteenth flag in Monument Square on June 19th, and the request of flying the Pride flag in Monument Square on June 22nd. Sure. Okay.
So, I don't know what would be most helpful to you. Do you want
Joe,
to?
introduce yourself.
Oh, sorry,
Yeah.
Joe Palumbo. I'm here as the co-chair with Andrea Fonserrada of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Commission to address the 2 items related to both, I guess, the proclamation now for Juneteenth and Concord Pride, and the flag raising for Juneteenth and Concord Pride. I'm happy to go through them, or if you've already read the information, I can take questions. What would be most helpful to the board?
I have a question.
Okay.
I have a question about the Juneteenth flag. Is it 1 day or is it 3 days?
The Juneteenth flag should be 1 day, June 19th.
Because
thought it was
what we have in
more.
our packet says
Yeah,
3
it
days.
says 3 days.
What's 3 days?
19, 20, and 21.
Yeah.
I think that probably came when we wrote this up, because last year folks said it went up and went down really fast, and they didn't get to see it. So the flag goes up and down the American flag goes up and
Every
down
day.
every day. So I think that's for you to determine. I think last year people thought it was brief, but the actual holiday is June 19th. The Pride Fest flag wouldn't go up to June 22nd. So there's a 3-day window if you chose to do that.
Okay.
And just as a reminder, because Terry and I just happened to meet on the stairwell about if there's any questions about their flag raising policy. Remember last year with Henry's help, you modified the flag raising policy for the town. I think it's called APP 16.
Yes.
Which just reminds us that these aren't like public sentiments. These are official acts of the town. So you're choosing to, through the town activities, and they align nicely with the proclamation, right? The town's making a proclamation, making it a townwide activity, and then supporting it with the raising of a flag.
I didn't understand what you just said, Joe. It's not public sentiment, it's what?
Let me go to the language, it's helpful.
I actually printed it out,
If,
too.
Is this an APP?
Yeah, APP
Yes.
16.
Yeah.
APP 16,
Yeah.
great.
Yes, it
It-
says it's at the sole discretion of the select
Yeah, it
board.
talks about other flags, and
Yeah.
other flags may be
Yeah, I
raised
have it right here. Well, I have
below the American flag on town-owned flagpoles
yeah.
for such period of time as the town of Concord, acting through its select board, expresses on each occasion and in its sole discretion authorizes the raising of such flag. This is the important part. The town's flagpoles are not intended to serve as a forum for free expression by the public. Flags may only be displayed by the town as an expression of the town's official sentiments by a vote of the select board as set forth above. It shall be a condition of the foregoing authorization, the town shall acquire and retain ownership of all such flags before they are raised, and they must be raised by the fire department. This was put in very wisely last year so that you didn't have random,
Right.
Precedent. Yeah.
yeah. This is
Yeah, lots of
basically,
different requests.
yeah, this is really only when
Yep.
you decide as a select board.
But our decision should be informed by what we think the people of the town want,
Right.
right? So,
Right.
okay.
And
Yeah,
And so last year was the Juneteenth flag.
That's right.
Was the first year?
Yes, that's
Okay,
right.
So it would, essentially, this year would be the same,
Yes.
Yes.
and it's the same flag, it's.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exact same.
Okay, so same flag on Juneteenth, on,
yeah.
assuming it's on.
Recognizing that Juneteenth is a
Federal.
national
It's a-
and
Yeah,
mass-
it's- I was
and
gonna say, it's a
state holiday.
federal holiday,
It
right?
is, it's a federal holiday.
And we fly flags on other federal holidays,
Holidays,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
And for other purposes, like the passing of certain members of the community and,
Yep.
and other reasons.
I think the POW flag, I think
Yeah.
that's flown sometimes. And these are always in addition to the American flag. These are below the American flag.
Right.
These are in addition to.
So, for example, if we were to get a request to fly a flag for, let's say, well, I'm the liaison for the Hanscom Field stuff. So say someone wanted us to fly a flag to stop private jets at Hanscom. That request, I guess, would have to come to the select board, and we'd have to, and I might say, well, I really want to stop those jets, but I don't think the flag is appropriate, and we could have that kind of discussion, right? Okay, because not everything is going to be approved by us.
Right.
It might be something we don't think is appropriate for whatever reason. Okay,
I think, though, that it does go to use your example, we've written and signed letters as the select board taking a specific position on that. And so you could raise that example as something that we might do. And it's similar, these two events are both accompanied by proclamations recognizing those events. So-
I separate out in my mind, though, the proclamation from the flag. You can have a proclamation without a flag and
Sure.
a flag without a proclamation.
Right.
So just because we have a proclamation doesn't necessarily mean that we're okaying a flag. They're
Yeah.
distinct, which is why we pulled them off the consent agenda.
right.
So,
Right, and the same with
Right.
the letters, which is why I gave that example. Like,
right.
I really advocated for those letters, but I'm not sure I'd want to fly an official flag for it. But luckily, we don't have that question tonight, so.
We don't, but
Yeah.
what I'm referring to is the words that say expression of the town's official
Yeah.
sentiments. So
Yeah.
if we write a letter or make a proclamation, we are expressing the town's official sentiments when we do that.
I have the same
I
interpretation
have
of
a,
that.
I had,
Exactly.
just as a comment, I don't have any problem with the Juneteenth flag. We have a precedent, it's a federal holiday, I don't have any problem with that. I do have an issue with the Concord Pride flag. Not that I don't believe that we should, it's a cause that I believe in, but I do have an issue with what's the use of our flagpole. It's a flagpole that doesn't just represent Concord necessarily, it represents Concord as part of something bigger. And it's not a bulletin board, it's a flagpole. And so I have concerns about this.
Could I respond?
Sure.
I certainly see how one could construe it that way. We have to remember that in 2024, the movement in Concord and throughout the nation to particularly honor the lesbian, gay, bi, transgender, LGBTIA plus community is a nationwide movement, and it's certainly a movement in the state of Massachusetts. These flags fly at Maynard and Carlisle and Acton Pride, and this is the same flag that flies over Fenway Park. So it's not I think you have to separate it. It's not a bulletin board announcement. It's a support for the sentiment of the town through the actual holding of a Pride Month. Concord's never had a Pride Month. This would be the first time in its history that it's ever done this. So this is when you think of the percentage of people, especially the youth, who, if you look at the, I don't know, the silent generation currently identifies in this community as about 1%. The boomer community goes about 4%. When you go to the Gen Z community, you're at 30% of the nationwide, and a Gallup poll identifies as part of this community. So this is a way of honoring them and acknowledging that they are welcome in Concord, they are part of Concord, and they're celebrated here in Concord. So that's the reason why this has been brought forward, not to make a bulletin board statement.
Sure.
I have a follow-up question, Joe.
Please.
So you said Carlisle and Maynard, do they actually fly this flag on their town?
It was interesting. Maynard, Carlisle is a good example. They had 200 pride flags that were on their common last week that were stolen and taken in the middle of the night, and their select board had to respond to that. Yeah.
Little flags,
Yeah,
but it
and-
wasn't on the.
And they were almost immediately replaced by
They
the
were.
community
Yeah. So
because of that
yeah,
act.
it's part of the dialogue, absolutely.
Okay. Okay,
Now,
what about
I
Maynard?
can't say I know Maynard's doing Maynard Pride this weekend. I know Acton is doing their Pride the weekend after. I didn't follow up to know if they're flying the flags, but the flag's flying in Wakefield. The flag flies over Boston City Hall. It flies in Cambridge. I mean, it flies in Great Barrington. I mean, it's sort of
Yeah, I mean.
kind of a normal activity
I'm
nowadays.
sort of a little bit with Mary here. I mean, I think certainly Juneteenth on June 19th, it's a federal holiday. We've done it before. You know, I think when we start talking about a separate event that's not a national holiday or a state holiday or
Well, actually,
something like that.
President's really acknowledging it
So,
on.
but there is
tonight.
definitely sort of a mix there. Just, I mean, it's not a universal thing. I mean, there's,
Well, the Juneteenth flag is not universal either.
but Juneteenth is a little bit different because it's an acknowledged federal holiday. So, I think there's just been different opinions on, whether or not something like that,
Something like what?
something like flying the pride flag.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I think there's been different opinions on whether you're opening up to like a much broader range of
Yeah.
people making requests, right? And sort of the precedent around that.
Yeah, and I think that's so wise about your policy. APP 16 allows you not to open yourself up to that.
Yeah.
And I certainly think if this was in any way a controversial move, I don't think we would have seen the support we've seen. Shannon, do you have that website I wanted to show?
Yeah.
I think this helps people to see the amount of organizations in the town that are working on this. You've got, from Concord Recreation, and the town itself has been with us from the very beginning, planning this since September. You've got the League of Women Voters working on this. You have Concord Carlisle High School themselves have a Pride logo. You've got the museums, you've got Concord Art, you've got all the churches. And if you look at can you scroll down and show I don't know if you're on the website, go the other direction a little bit for the events. If you look at those events up a little further, you've got events going on at almost every church in town. Almost, you've got events going on at the temple. You've got the national park having a queer history event at the Wayside. You've got Concord. I mean, you can't. This is like a town-wide celebration. It would set I think, an unpleasant and embarrassing precedent if you were the one institution that chose not to support what was going on in the rest of the
There's a
town.
difference between fully supporting Pride Month and fully supporting the activities, and whether or not there's a flag
Yeah.
raising. So, I mean, I just
Yeah.
want to be clear and to separate.
Yeah,
those
no, I
two
understand.
things. I am fully supportive
Yeah.
of, so let's not conflate
Yeah. I mean, I think
supporting Pride.
I just, if I may, I do see this as an opportunity to support and really raise up a particular segment of our population. And, when we raise the POW MIA flag, or when we choose to recognize veterans, or when we choose to recognize really, any group of individuals who, in our community, I think it's appropriate from time to time to do that. I was really proud to read the Holocaust Remembrance Proclamation just a couple of weeks ago, and that is really standing with people who have been frankly, the victims of one of the most horrific events in mankind, and reminding ourselves that these things are there and they happen, and that we, stand with those people.
Did we have a flag?
In remembering that. No, but that doesn't mean that.
Could have.
Yeah, it doesn't mean that we wouldn't, and I think that I would put these in that kind of category and would weigh such a request in the same sort of way, I think. I think it's appropriate to really recognize groups of individuals who have particular affinities from time to time, and I think this is one of them, and I'm really pleased with the amount of events, and not to mention the fact that this does give us an opportunity to celebrate what our whole community is doing, as demonstrated by how many different organizations have signed on to be part of this.
We've been working with it's called the Spectrum Club at the high school, and those students are quite excited about being able to be down here that day and see that flag go up. And you have to really think about it. We're sending a message we're sending a message to a lot of people who need to be seen, and that's part of the work of diversity, equity, and inclusion, is creating opportunities for people to know that they're welcome.
But I do have to say, Joe, that the fact that the flag was put right at the beginning of the day's events, before actually talking to the select board about that, gives me a bad impression, because I see that your events, the very first event is the flag raising without actually consulting with the select board, because it is our call. And so that, so to say that people are really looking at, I know that people are excited about many of the events that are going to happen on that day, and I'm really happy for that.
Yeah.
The kickoff, though, was premature to write that somehow there was going to be a kickoff.
Sorry, that was not in anyone's intent. I think we just followed the same protocol we used for the Juneteenth last year. That's how Juneteenth went. We had if you look at the proclamation last year and this year, it was the same, and it was.
But the process is.
But we're just following the same process we followed last year.
Well, you're following the process after the fact that you
But it wasn't,
advertised.
I apologize. It wasn't intentional. We were just following the same process we did last year. We brought the proclamation with the flag raising embedded in it. But probably this year is more visibility because Juneteenth didn't have a website and Juneteenth didn't have all these people involved in it. So
I'd like to go.
it would be helpful to me to know if what's the concern, what is the worry? Because if there's a worry, we should know about it.
Right.
What's the worry?
So I think it sounds like a really great event, and I think you have a lot of support from the select board. I think my worry is how this is going to go as a precedent. I think Mark had a great example about the Holocaust Day. I think maybe they would want a flag. I'm just thinking there could be 50 groups out there that want to have flags, and where are we going to draw the line? And, I'm just sort of trying to think it through. And related to that, you mentioned a number of towns. So Carlisle had flags in their common. And I'm wondering the other towns you mentioned, I think Maynard, Acton, whatever they were.
Maynard, Acton, Westford. I was just in Lexington today. They've lined the street, and all their light poles in Lexington have a flag on it.
Are any of these towns using the official flagpole, do you know?
I don't know.
Okay.
I know those towns mentioned that. No, I know certainly Boston, I think, and Great Barrington, one of the Western Mass states.
Have you considered other ways of putting?
I think Wendy had a comment.
Oh, go ahead, sorry.
Okay.
Well, no, I guess what struck me first when I read this is there was a presumption that we'd already approved it.
Right.
So
Right.
just a comment, it's a
Right.
process thing.
Right, thank you.
I spent a lot of time studying the American flag and what there's a etiquette around the flag code and what goes under it, and it's certainly what you're proposing is consistent with policies that exist today, so from that standpoint is fine. I think I pulled out the policy and I read it, and I pulled the same words that you did, Mark, around it's really representing the sentiments of the town. And when I look at the activities that are planned around Pride Month, I was really struck. It's very broad support across the town. And I really do want to support this. I do think it's precedent-setting, but maybe that's okay. And if we need to review this policy and revise it, we should do that. But I do think that there is definitely broad sentiment across town in support of this type of event, and I think it's a great way to recognize this group and diversity. So, it's my 2 cents.
I'm sorry.
Be supportive of it.
And I guess probably folks are just excited because Congress never had a Pride event ever. So it just, I think in the excitement of planning the whole thing, the group, the committee's like, oh, and we'll do the flag thing. Like, well, yeah, well, there's a policy for that. Like we did the Juneteenth. I don't think it was in trying to, there was no intent to try to put it forward. It was just people's excitement, probably.
So may I suggest next year that for both events, you get on our agenda in, April or May, which is a little tough with town meeting, and we have a new chairman, and it's a little tough, but that would give plenty of time to have the whole discussion. Then you can do your publicity and everything would,
Yeah, absolutely.
Any
We might want to look at
further
this
comments?
policy. We might want to put a little more
Yeah.
prayer, more detail on
exactly.
this.
That's a good idea.
Do we have a person who wants to do that?
So, just
I
a
just
couple
wanna-
things. Let's go with Cameron.
So, Joe, I mean, this is not my personal viewpoint, right? I'm fully supportive of Pride Day. There's been some stuff that I've read, some people who have suggested that some of the things around, you've started to see some folks with the Pride flag kind of
Oh, yeah.
co-opting it into sort of a pro-Palestinian type of thing.
Yeah.
Saw it in Philadelphia yesterday, several hundred people. So people have brought it up. I'm not, whether I agree or disagree with it, people have brought it up like, hey, that's a thing, is the town gonna go put this
Yeah.
up on, and that's something that, is kind of disturbing to me, and, so I don't know if you.
I'm glad you brought that up.
Because
Yeah.
It's just another concern that I have.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not
Yeah.
I love the
Yeah, yeah.
pride thing.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
just, it's the flying of the flag that gives me,
No one, certainly on the committee
yeah.
that we work on, that's not come up, and there's no political agenda involved in any of the planners of this group. We do know that at any Pride event, there's always a potential for all kind of, we know there's a long history in this country of anti-protesters at Pride event, and that's why I've been working closely with town staff and the police department, who are planning to give us all the necessary support, security, a spot if there's folks that, feel like protesting against Pride, there'll be a spot for them to do that in. So
I don't think
it's a lot harder than it
against
used to be because
Yeah.
there's so many.
No, I don't think it's probably against.
can't get
I
to
think
all
it
of
was
them
more
anymore.
Co-opting it, and then what it represents is,
Right,
it's
right.
another
Yeah,
thing
that-
that's
Right.
sort
Yeah.
of.
That certainly won't be a
also
part of what we're
representing
doing.
something else. right?
Exactly. What does it
So,
represent? Right.
No, we have a real focus on LGBTQ plus IA, and that's it that day.
That's it.
Oh, sorry.
But Mary, are there any other concerns that you haven't been, so I don't want folks to feel worried about this. I want people to feel the same celebration, that celebratory nature behind what's intended.
Any questions? I can make a motion?
Yeah. So,
You ready?
yes, please make a motion.
And I just want to clarify before we do this, so we are saying that the flag for Juneteenth would be the 19th, 20th, and 21st, because we're about to make a motion for those days. Juneteenth, that flag.
Yeah,
Not the
we're doing
pride
one at a time.
Yeah.
Right, so.
Yeah, and Wendy's trying to ask a clarifying question of, do we want to make a motion for the singular day, or do we want to fly that flag for
3 days.
several days in a row and then?
Well, again, like, what do we,
No, it was as proposed, because I think, Joe, earlier on,
Yeah.
you said it was 1 day, but
Right.
actually it's 3 in the documents that we
In the,
reviewed today.
in the documents we have.
It's your discretion.
And that was in response to last year. I know I personally didn't happen to drive past the flagpole on the 19th, so I never saw it, and,
well, I would,
So-
again, go back to what do we do on other holidays? What
Yeah.
do we normally,
yeah, right.
What do we
So-
do?
what do we do? I mean, if we,
Well, it's usually
if we normally.
Well, any given application to fly a flag is going to have some dates that are bounded to it. So it would be up to us to decide whether we want to do 1 day or 3 days.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, for other holidays, do we
Yeah.
do them for 3 days, or do we do them for?
Well, all the holidays, the flag is
I
raised
think-
every day and
What
lowered
other-
every
what
day,
other-
so I'm just not, yeah.
Actually,
yeah.
what other times do we fly flags and what for and for how long?
Yeah, that's a
No,
good
I
question.
don't know off the top of my head. The Juneteenth flag last year was up for an hour,
Only
right?
an hour?
No, it was the day.
There was something that was for an hour.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Ooh, that,
That was,
Oh,
I thought it was up all day. but
That's
I
starting
didn't
to
know
sound
that.
like the capital of the U.S.
I think it was
now.
up all day.
Well,
It's
this is a
just
good
raising
point,
money now.
because like the MIA veterans
Yeah.
flags, are they only up for 1 day?
Yeah.
I guess we don't want one flag, you're proposing one flag is up for
I don't
3
think-
days, another one's 2 days.
Frankly, from what I learned last year with Henry's help, we didn't have really a policy for flags
Right.
Yeah,
other
yeah,
than.
right.
So I think the Juneteenth was, other than the MIA flag, I think that's the only other time, this is like new territory you're
Yeah.
creating.
Right, but now that I'm thinking about it, why would we have the pride flag for 3 days, but, I mean, the Juneteenth flag for 3 days, the pride flag is only 2 days, the MIA flag is maybe 1 day?
Yeah.
Wait a minute, maybe we need to have them all the same, I don't know.
what on the events, are they running all weekend?
Yeah,
2
yeah.
days?
The Juneteenth events, the townwide
this
Juneteenth
is the
events
19th.
all happen on that day, Wednesday. So if you want to stay consistent with the events, it would be a 1 day. The pride activities are Saturday and Sunday, so that's why it was requested to run both days.
Okay.
Just asking that.
Sorry about that.
I would like to have all the groups that have flags have the same number of days. I don't think it makes sense to have one group have more days than another group.
I wonder if we could table this until, can we table this until our next meeting? Because I think we've got some, we've got some outstanding issues as far as what are other towns doing, what has been our experience with what types of flags, how often do we fly them? And our next meeting is in plenty of time to get both of these, it's before both of these events, the 19th and the
But
22nd.
in the meantime, there's a lot of advertisement. I mean, you're just
Yeah.
hitting high gear around.
Yeah, we get a lot of-
Well, that
I
didn't
just,
stop
I'm
you
just
from,
recognizing.
Could we separate them and talk, I mean, the Juneteenth flag flew last year.
Yeah.
Could we
okay,
separate them?
I'd be okay with
Yeah,
that.
let's-
For,
Yeah,
Do
if
you
it's for
want
1
to do it
day.
just for the 19th?
well,
That's the 19th. It
Okay.
seemed consistent to do it just for
If
the
it's
day
for 1
that you're
day,
recognizing.
I,
That would
I
make
would-
sense to me.
Go ahead with it.
okay.
Okay,
Let's
go
do
ahead.
that.
Go ahead.
Right, so
Make a
I'll make a
motion.
motion to approve the request of flying the Juneteenth flag in Monument Square on June 19th.
yes,
And I'll stop there.
I will
You're
second
doing
that
one
motion.
motion? Okay.
For the day, for the full
For
day.
the full day, June 19th.
Till
Not for
Sunday.
an hour,
Yeah,
for the
till
full
they
day.
take the,
For the
till they
full
take the
day,
flag down at
absolutely, the full
night.
day.
Yeah.
So for the day.
Yeah.
So get your pictures, people.
Okay, good.
I second that.
Okay. Any
Discussion?
further discussion on that motion? All in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
Aye. And do we have a motion around the proclamation for June 19th?
Move to approve.
Yes, move to approve the proclamation, I don't have an official vote here. Move to approve the proclamation for June 19th as included in our meeting materials.
I don't have a copy of it. Does it just say the flag flies on the
That's what
19th?
I was just
Well,
going to check.
it's very similar to last
doesn't-
year's
it doesn't
proclamation.
mention it at
itself,
all.
it's different
Right, but it doesn't
proclamation.
say it flies on the 20th and 21st.
No.
It doesn't
No,
mention
no,
it on
doesn't
the,
the flag, doesn't mention the flag
Okay,
at
great.
all.
I second that.
Okay. Any further discussion about that? And I would just note that presuming that we were going to do the same thing as last year, I did volunteer to represent the select board by reading the proclamation at the flag raising.
Thank you.
And, we're going to, you'll notice at the bottom of our agenda, there are some other events for those of you who might want to
Sign up for
participate
events.
in proclamation reading.
So
Okay.
what's on the second thing where are we leaving that one? The Concord Pride?
We're just,
Proclamation
we need to take a
and
we
vote.
need to take a vote.
Time,
We need,
yeah.
okay. So the vote on the proclamation, all in favor?
Juneteenth proclamation.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, I
All
thought
in
you did
favor?
that, sorry.
Aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? No? Okay, great. Okay, so we've voted to raise the flag for Juneteenth on June 19th, and we've voted to approve the proclamation. Do I have a motion to raise the pride flag in Monument Square on June 22nd and
I'd like to
23rd?
table, I'd like to make motions to table that until our next meeting.
I'll second that motion.
Any discussion about that?
So with the aim of receiving more information?
Yeah.
And specifically, what other towns are flying the flag in the same manner as we're proposing?
Right, and what other groups fly in Concord? How many days do they fly?
Exactly,
Okay.
exactly.
Okay,
Okay, I'll just express that while I'm always happy to be informed by what other people are doing,
Yeah.
I also want to recognize the broad community's support and participation in this event. I'm going to suggest that I think that independent of what is going on, what other communities might be doing, we have invested a lot of time and effort, I think, and planning committee in doing a first event of its kind, and I do not see the value of going and checking others' work before approving this. So I would vastly prefer to approve this
Okay.
at this meeting.
And I'd be in support of approving it at this meeting
Yeah.
for the same reason. For these 2 days, the 27th.
well, would you guys agree, I'm just uncomfortable with coming in the future and one group says, well, you gave that group 2 days and we want 6 days.
Remember, it's not that
So-
group, it's the town.
No,
It's not that group, it's the town.
But it can be decided in 2 weeks with more information.
well, right.
But what
so-
information do you hope to get that you don't have now?
Well, so what I suggest is, could we approve it for the June 22nd now? And when we get the rest of the information, we could decide on whether to also do the 23rd.
Another
No, because we already just said Juneteenth was going to be one day.
Another factor that,
Mm-hmm.
I would weigh into this is like Black History Month. So Pride is a month.
Yeah.
It's June, it's recognized that way, really across the nation. And I know that some months have more than one,
Right.
honoring, and so the communities around us, for example, I know Carlisle had their Pride celebration on May 31st, so they're even expanding June a little bit into May. And other communities are doing whatever fits in with their schedule. I think that there are, as we saw, a myriad of deeply Concord organizations that have invested their time and effort in planning this event, and I think it's
I think that this is a great event. I really
Yeah.
do.
And it's
That's-
basically
to
a
me,
weekend.
They're just, in my mind, I'm distinguishing between an event
Yeah.
and a flag raising. And I share Terry's concerns about, when do we, how big of an event do we say is big enough to, we really do need to rewrite this policy.
Yeah.
I think we really do. And I think this event will be great, whether we raise the flag or not. And I feel very unsure about this now. So I would either like to get more information, or I will vote against it.
I agree.
Okay. So we have a motion to table.
Which
And a second?
Second.
Any further discussion on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Suppose.
So 3-2, the motion carries. We'll table this till the next meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Still have a proclamation.
We still have a proclamation.
Its proclamation includes,
Exactly.
Does not speak
Yes,
to
it
the
does.
flag.
does.
Yes, it does.
It actually does.
Yes, it does.
yeah.
It
You
does.
could take that out.
Yes, it does.
Joe is saying
What does it
you
say?
could take that out.
Whereas Concord Pride Fest begins with a flag raising in Monument Square,
Yeah, I was
a
just
rally and a march down Main
Just took it from
Street.
the website.
So let me ask, Joe, do you prefer if we take out that first line, that it begins, and vote it tonight? Or do you prefer that we vote it next week, 2 weeks from now at our next meeting?
We'll have to wait.
Well, I would leave it to your discretion. I think the only reason it's in there is we just were cutting and pasting from the language off the website. Because that's the
But do you
consistent.
need to have the proclamation right away, so we should take out the first line? Or do you
Well-
want to wait and see?
Yeah. I think that's up to you, I think about as leaders, because the message that you're sending is what's important. What is the message you want the community? By postponing this 2 weeks, when's the next meeting?
17th.
So by the 17th, that's the week of. So this is 2 weeks for people to talk about this, to wonder, is there going to be a flag raising? There's going to be questions from the local press about it. You may get press beyond Concord. So I just want you to think about, like,
Yep.
what message you want to send and what message you want us to relay. Like,
Okay.
for all these groups that are working, what should I tell them, I guess?
Right, well, I think we support the event and we want to do the proclamation.
Yeah.
So maybe we should just do it now without that first line.
Let me see if I can just change that first line. Right
Sure.
now, it reads, Concord Pride Fest begins with a flag raising in Monument Square.
Right.
A rally and march down Main Street followed. You could say Concord Pride begins with a rally in
Yeah.
Monument Square and a march down Main Street.
Perfect.
Take that as a
Perfect.
sentence.
Is that a motion? I'll second it.
Okay, so let me just repeat it.
Go ahead.
We would change that beginning of the first sentence to say, Concord Pride Fest begins with a rally in Monument Square, followed by a march down Main Street. Oh, no, actually, you know what? Concord Pride Fest begins with a rally in Monument Square and a march down Main Street, followed by events, music, crafts, entertainment, and food throughout the day in Concord and West Concord.
Yes,
Second.
yes.
Second, okay.
Any further discussion about the amendment to the proclamation?
All in favor?
All in favor?
The
Aye.
amendment? Aye.
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 Aye,
Aye.
okay.
So this way you
Get
can
that, Jen.
do your publicity and
Thank you.
we'll discuss the flag again.
So it'll be on the next
So
item.
I think that we've amended the proclamation. Now, are we ready to approve the proclamation so that it's, or is that, did we
think we
vote the
approved an amendment.
proclamation as
We
amended?
approved it.
We approve the proclamation
As
as
amended, great.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Thank
Just want to make sure that we got
Yep,
that
we
base
got it.
covered.
Great.
Okay. So the remaining action item on there is to actually decide whether we're going to raise the flag or not.
Right,
Yes, at the next meeting. Yes.
at our next meeting.
Okay.
And if you need anything for information from us before, then please just let me know.
I will.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And then at a
Okay, thank you,
future
Joe.
meeting, we will discuss the whole policy. Yep, I like that idea.
Okay.
Are we going to try to rewrite the policy before June 17th? Is that
No, I don't
possible?
think we can.
No, I don't
That's
think
not
so.
possible.
I'm also recognizing that we're running a little behind on time.
Okay,
so
let's go.
Let's put a pin in that and move to the next agenda item, which is our discussion of the annual 2025 town meeting calendar. And this is, we have, is Carmen here?
Carmen is on
Carmen's
Zoom.
online. Okay, great. So just by way of introduction here, the town meeting 2025 would fall very, very close to our 250th celebration. And so there's been some ongoing discussion about options for moving it. Distributed in this packet were a couple of different ways to get to a June 1st date,
Right.
which turns out to really not be an option either, because we've got a conflict with All Night Live at the high school on June 1st. However, the high school would be potentially prepared to support us on June 2nd, which is a Monday night, as opposed to June 1st, which is a Sunday. And so we're not planning to actually act on this calendar tonight, but rather discuss it again on the 17th. My understanding is that there's a recommendation or even an imperative that we adopt the town meeting calendar by in this month of June, so that all committees and boards can prepare towards it. The two options that are in front of you, option 1 and option 2, basically differ in when we hold the hearings. The hearings being an important part of informing the public around town meeting. One would place those hearings at our sort of normal cadence, which is towards the beginning of April and somewhat ahead of when we would normally meet. And the others actually push those hearings back till after the 250th celebration. So I'm going to ask Carmen whether I covered everything that we needed to cover by way of introduction there, or whether there's anything she'd like to ask, and then open it up for questions that you might need to know before deciding this
I didn't see the difference.
next time.
Thank you, Mark. I can't turn my camera on because it says the host told me has not allowed me to do that, so.
Okay.
So sorry about that. But a couple of other open items on this. If you wanted to begin town meeting on a Sunday, I defer to Shannon on this. I don't think we've specifically talked with the high school about that following Sunday. But I think it would probably work. That does push us further into June.
No.
But certainly we can start town meeting on the Monday, June 2nd, and that will work for the high school. Another open item is whether or not to hold the town meeting preview meeting. If so, when, and if so, what should its focus be? It's penciled into both of the draft calendars that you have really fairly early in the process. Well, actually, I guess one has it on Saturday, January 18th, with the warrant opening on the 20th. Or actually, yeah, both of them have it now on the 18th with warrant opening on the 20th. So, but I know there's been some criticism and displeasure with that meeting and some question about what its real purpose is and whether it's worth dragging people to a meeting on a Saturday morning. But it is the select board's prerogative what to do with that meeting and to think through whether there are any important purposes for having it. The compression of the hearings, I looked back over a few different calendars in different years, and this is actually pretty typical. In the last several years, we have alternated Tuesdays and Thursdays for hearings and just kind of punched them all out in a 2-week period, alternating Tuesdays and Thursdays. So that is actually, truth be told, not unusual.
Great. Thank you, Carmen. Any other
I
questions?
did look at this. One of the things that struck me is under option 1, there's only 5 days from when you mail the warrant to the first hearing. I think that's crazy.
Oh, that won't work.
That's way too low. I mean, so to
Oh,
me,
yeah.
option 2 was the only one that was
Oh, yeah, my
reasonable.
mail,
5 days is
oh,
just
my
not
mail
long.
takes 8 days to come from the town hall.
Whatever, I
It does, it really does. It's very slow.
People need a little time to get the warrant, and I
Yeah,
just think it would.
I've been to
better to
many
have it
meetings where when I got home that night, the mail had been delivered at 5:30 or 6 o'clock, and the thing for that meeting was in the mailbox. So, yes, 5 days isn't going to work,
It
no
just,
way.
yeah, I mean, it'll be online, but still, I think that's.
Another thing is, if you wait too late in June, it gets very hot. People are getting really tired of sitting in
I'm worried
meetings.
about it starting in June, period, like, is
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
That doesn't sound like it's an option.
Well, it might be, and so I've raised a couple of questions myself. One of them is to understand a bit more about the specifics of the conflicts with the school in May.
Yep.
There may be possibilities of other spaces. I don't know whether it's a conflict just with the auditorium or the gymnasium or both, and whether there was any other way that we could possibly do that. Because it does seem to me that the problem with option A is you're having people talking about things in April, April 7th,
Yeah.
people will come to us, and then 2 months later,
Yeah.
they're asking for a vote on something which
Yeah,
there may be.
No, we always do that. The hearings are usually February, March, and town meeting is not until, April 29th.
Well,
But
that-
just to clarify, I was saying that June 1st or 2nd might work, but the option of pushing it even another week, I think is too late, so,
June 8th is too late.
yeah.
Especially
I
if
would
there's
say,
any-
is there any way we can pull it forward? I mean, if
Yeah.
there isn't,
Yeah.
there isn't.
I agree,
but
if we
at least
could,
be-
yeah.
be,
It's-
You know, exploring all
And what we're
options.
trying to do here is tease out the questions that we may have a better sense of the answers of by the time we actually adopt a calendar, and trying to find the problems, like, for example, I think that's a good one. I didn't notice that about having the warrant mailed, and then, so maybe there's some way to pull the warrant up a little bit earlier if we in fact wanted to go with some
Right.
kind of schedule like
Sure.
the option 7.
So do you think it's worthwhile to ask the schools if there's another day in May that would work?
Well, I think they've already asked, and that's why I'm assuming. But one thing that they might be able to do, since the middle school is going to be open, and people want to have a satellite at West Concord, right? So there's multiple sites next year, and I think Carmen could maybe talk about this. So maybe the middle school auditorium and
Well, I think.
whatever.
I think the Garrison School, I think we really did put a pretty big auditorium in
Yeah.
there.
Yes.
Right? And we also have a pretty big cafeteria in there. So there's probably some capacity in there that we might be able to use.
Yeah, I'll look forward to community events there, but now we're building a calendar based around the building that is under construction.
And they're going live.
So,
every
and
day,
a go
So you
live
think it would-
date. Well,
It would slip past, it's February is the date,
the,
right?
the,
You
the,
have-
the thinking, at least within the building committee,
Yeah.
is that while it may in fact open for students, that could be sort of a minimum viable school building at that point, and their real readiness to host large-scale community events could come later. So I recognize the possibility, but the other thing too is that, and I think for those of us that work town meeting, it's one thing to have the ability to overflow into a room that's a walk across the cafeteria. The problem of if your overflow room is, get and drive to the other side of town, that I'm not sure that we're quite ready for that.
Well-
What occurred to me was possibly the use of the other gymnasium in the high school. If the auditorium is really the issue, maybe there's that space could be set up, because then you're sort of in the same configuration. But that's just, this is me without knowing anything about what the actual real conflicts are with the school in May.
Carmen
So-
may know.
Carmen, do you have any more information on that?
Well, my understanding, and Shannon may be able to enlighten us also, but my understanding is that the high school just has a very busy May. They have a musical, they have graduation the last week of May, and my understanding is that it was a really major imposition and inconvenience on the cast and the faculty putting on the musical this year to be booted out of the auditorium for 3 full nights when we needed it so that they could not practice in there. So I think the musical is a very large part of it. The musical, as I understand it, happens in May, and they need the auditorium the week before it happens. And then kind of pretty much right after that, they're into graduation. So that's my understanding of the schedule. And I know Shannon had some conversations with the staff at CCHS, and she may have more on that.
Final exams, AP exams, MCAS, prom, graduation, other award ceremonies,
All in May.
all in May. Those are just things that I wrote down in an email.
Okay.
Okay. Well,
And
I think June 2nd would work. I would not want to go to the 8th, but June's,
I agree.
It's
I
Monday,
may have
Tuesday,
to,
Wednesday.
right?
Might go to-
I think,
have to.
I think we're zeroing in
and
on that.
essentially, that's effectively 1 year from tonight.
And just between now and the 17th, I can make sure that there's really no couple day
Yeah.
span in May
Right.
that
There's no like Sunday, Monday, Tuesday or something.
Okay.
And also about whether we can move up the warrant.
Yeah, I
Right.
can shift those days.
Great.
So
you
because
may not
this
have
is a community event that has implications across the scheduling of a lot of things, I will take a comment. So I see Diane Proctor at the microphone.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Now it's falling off the. Well, I could just carry it around.
Go ahead.
Well, we can't hear it. It doesn't
Just
amplify.
sit though.
Oh, it doesn't amplify. Okay.
Yeah.
Diane Proctor, 57 Sudbury Road. It may be that this has to be in a public space, but a place like Middlesex School's gymnasium is huge, and it can hold many, many people. And it may be that you might approach one of the independent schools that have big gymnasium spaces to hold a town meeting. There's also a lot of parking at Middlesex School because they can accommodate enormous numbers of people for parking.
Okay.
So I'm not, it's just as an alternative in a difficult time period. Now, I don't know what the policies are or whether there are constraints about, public venues, but it's just a thought to share. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so I heard the suggestion of possibly another public space or available space in town. Yes, Craig?
Excuse me. My birthday is June 2nd,
Oh,
There you go.
so I think that's a great way to celebrate. I mean, I can't imagine a better birthday than town meetings.
thank you for your comment.
Sure.
Responding to
Terry.
Diane's comment, it's great to be creative, but I have the feeling that all schools are going to have end-of-year pressures with graduation exams, proms, et cetera, and
Some of those end earlier, some of them.
Yeah.
maybe.
I don't know.
It's
And-
worth asking.
Yeah.
And this is, I think that the suggestion is really, maybe those are places where we might be able to do something that more approximates our, a couple of weeks after the 250th rather than waiting a whole month.
Right.
Including a Sunday.
Yeah.
Right, but I'm saying it's, at the end,
Yeah.
May is a
Okay.
really busy month in every school, I think.
Okay. So unless there's anybody has any new thoughts, and if you do, that's what our correspondence policy is there for. Please communicate your ideas, and we'll return to this at our next meeting for a decision.
Right.
Okay. Moving on. The Concord 225,
Concord 250.
Concord 250 Committee, and consider an amended charge. Gary Clayton, are you on? Yeah, there you are.
Good evening.
Hi.
So, you want me to start this off?
Sure.
Sure, all right. I prepared, and I believe it's been included in the board's package, information relative to what's an update, particularly on the operating budget for the Concord 250 Executive Committee. And then there's also some information relative to proposed changes or edits to the charge for the executive committee as well. That's, as you've seen in the material, information that was, or the charge itself was established in 2022. It's been modified 3 times, and that's not a surprise. It was articulated in the charge itself, that it's a large, complex endeavor that we are embarked upon as a community, and we learn as we proceed, and that continues to be the case. And part of the basis then for these updates is to reflect what we've learned and to ensure that as we move forward to April 19th, 2025, our role work is consistent with the board's expectations of the committee. So I guess maybe I would, at that, ask if you want, perhaps to look at the budget plan itself and see if there are any questions on the part of the select board relative to that particular document. And as you do that, just a little bit of context, because the last time I was here to update the board in a comprehensive way was in the fall of 2023. At that time, spoke to a number of issues and concerns that the executive committee had identified, particularly about the amount of funding that appeared necessary to support an adequate public safety program for the celebrations. And we had conversations about that in this meeting space with the select board. What emerged from that was a decision to move forward to go to town meeting and request additional funding for public safety in the amount of $350,000. And I appreciate both the select board support, the finance committee's support for that effort under Article 13 that did go to town meeting and was, I think, unanimously or nearly so in terms of public support for that. So that was a critical juncture for us because it gave us clarity about how we might utilize the funds that the town had already appropriated for our efforts. Because without that, we would spend all of what the town had previously earmarked, $700,000, and then some for public safety. And so the $350,000 allows us to adequately address public safety related needs and the range of other functions that are part of the celebrations. So there's a little bit of background context for where we are. The town meeting point was a critical juncture for us, and so we're now moving forward with, I'll call it further refinement and finalizing a large range of programs and activities and events that we're excited about and look forward to implementing here through the summer months and well into the remainder of 2024 and certainly through 2025, bringing us up to April 2025. So let me,
Can I just,
please.
so $1.3 million,
Yes.
is that new? Or is that sort of, that's been the budget?
That's new in the sense that that reflects the addition of the $350,000 from under Article 13 at town meeting, plus the funding support through the Community Preservation Committee's recommendation for the commemorative memorial, the tree planting activity.
So those are additional sources, yeah?
Correct.
The uses also went up by that same amount. Do you know what I mean? Like, so the original budget was, I'm trying to just get the from to. It wasn't X, it's now 1.3.
Yeah, it was at the end, last fall, it was $700,000 budget.
Okay.
And our estimate, and that has not changed for public safety, was $725,000. So that was the quandary that we faced, which again led to the pursuing Article 13 at town meeting.
So it's a revised upward budget, but it is the whole budget. Is that your question?
Yeah, I was just trying to understand, like, where did we start, right?
Right,
We started
yeah.
someplace, and now we're at 1.3, so I'm just trying to
Right,
understand,
yeah.
like, the new information is, we've
Makes
increased
sense.
the overall budget by,
Yeah.
which I'm still not crystal clear on. I see we got some more funding sources, right? But the original budget, was it just that it had a lower public safety amount?
Gary, I think it might be,
Other pieces of it that
it
were-
might be helpful to start a long time ago when the original budget outline was 2 million or in the 2 million range. I think it might be helpful to start from that point. And-
Sure. So the work of the executive committee beginning in 2022 did involve the various subcommittees identifying goals, aspirations, and attempting to provide budget estimates to fulfill those aspirations. And that totaled
I think 2.3.
2.3. So when I became chair of the committee last fall, I did not think that that goal was necessarily realistic. So, and I was, again, looking at a public safety estimate, which, as I've said multiple times, it represents and it still represents a substantial share of our operating budget. That is what we have to do, in my opinion. I hope we don't have to spend all that, But if we find come next winter or spring that there's information that indicates we need to be prepared in many, many different ways, we've got to have the resources to do it then, because it's too late to come back and seek, in my view, a significant amount of municipal funding in that regard. So does that help begin to provide a little more context and stage?
Yeah, if
for
the
this?
original budget was 2 something and now it's been
Yeah.
shrunk to 1.3, that's different than, hey, I'm here to ask for a bunch more money, right? So that's
Yeah.
what I was just trying
Yeah.
to understand. Yeah.
Yep.
There you go.
So that's very helpful.
Sure, Mary.
Yeah, I get some questions. Thanks, Gary. The schedule that you put together is very helpful.
Okay.
I've got a few questions.
Sure.
So out of that 1.3, really 1.1 of that is coming from the town, that's correct, right? The 1.3 million source, right, 1.1 is coming from the town. There's only 200K coming from the state.
Right,
So all
right,
these
yes.
other sources are different buckets within the town.
Correct.
Okay. The 725,000 that you have right now earmarked for public safety, do you think that's enough?
The answer is yes, based on what we know at this point in time. I know there's been a lot of thinking on the part of when we describe public safety, it's fire, police, public works, public health. And the town manager might be able to elaborate on this a bit more, but each of those functions within town government was asked to look at what we anticipate might happen or need to anticipate what will happen, and the cost associated with, and I don't have those numbers right in front of me, but again, it's divided up among those functions of public works and public health, fire, and police. So based on what we know today, the short answer is yes, that's adequate.
Okay.
And if I have to qualify that, I would simply say we work closely with the other public safety personnel in the other towns, the Battle Road towns in particular, but we're also working closely with the state through the state MEMA office. Through that, we are provided information and assistance at the federal government level, particularly through the Department of Homeland Security.
Okay. I have a few questions.
Okay.
My next question is that you've got 130K earmarked for events and programs, which I think covers 4 or 5 different subcommittees.
It does.
Do you have that broken out by subcommittee?
That work, those 4 subcommittee chairs met, along with Vice Chair Rob Monroe, met this past Friday to work out more of the details of that. I don't have that information right in front of me at this point in time, but I can get that for you in terms of what that would look like. So, and I can say, based on what I had seen, events was earmarked, I think, at about $50,000. I think art, music, and literature, approximately $60,000. Community engagement is around $30,000 or $40,000, and history and education, the balance. But I can get you the exact
Okay,
numbers, because I know that
I
probably
added
doesn't
those
quite add
numbers
up to
quickly. There
130.
wasn't
And
balance
and
left.
those people are here, some of them, so they may know.
If you would, please.
Thank you, Rob.
Yes. Evening, everybody. Happy Monday. Rob Monroe,
Thank you.
Vice Chair of Concord 250. So we did meet on Friday. The 4 program-related subcommittees, number 1, arts, music, and literature.
Yep.
2 would be history and education. 3 was events. 4 is community engagement. Happy to say that in 1 hour, we got to exactly $130,000, which was pretty impressive. So we have not approved this to the executive committee yet, so this is still in draft form. We still have conversations to have. As of right now, give or take, arts, music, and literature is at $38,000. History and education is at $12,000. Events, $50,000. Community engagement at $30,000. And so these are our best max budgets. It's possible, for example, events comes in under $50,000. And we are also recognizing that some of these events may occur throughout the span of our charge, which goes a little bit past April 19, 2025, and might fall into a different fiscal year as well. And so we are paying careful attention to that. The next step for this group is to then itemize what those events are that will fall into their allotted budgets. So we hope to do that work and have that finished by July and start marketing those events quickly thereafter.
Thank you.
Thanks.
One more question.
Okay, why don't you stay?
Why don't I?
Yes.
Why don't I?
Just in case.
Okay, so you've got down here in the notes other sources of, potential sources of money, right? The Mass DOT Innovation Grant, Transportation Bond Bill. Quickly, can you just tell us, give us your best guess right now as the probability of getting funds from those other sources?
So I would say, in broad strokes, our best bet to get federal and state funding will likely be less through cash and more through resources. We are working really closely with our elected officials, Simon Cataldo, Carmen Gentili, and others, to get some part of these funds. Some of these are just starting to mature, and our applications have just gone out. For example, the one for Mott was due on Friday, so we did submit something for that. We're optimistic, but we are cautiously optimistic that we could receive these funds. And some of these funds are not going to necessarily support direct programming for us.
Okay.
Right? They will help with ancillary infrastructure and other sort of capital projects, but not necessarily for the actual running of the programs.
Programs,
Yes.
okay. Okay, thank you.
Great. Any other questions?
I guess I had two questions under other. I know we have a 501c corp, right? Do you have any estimate at this point about what people have suggested they might give? I know they don't have to collect right now, but do you have any estimate of what's been recommended to date?
It might be best to ask Mr. Dane that question.
Oh, okay,
President of the
right.
250
Okay.
Corporation. So,
Thank you.
Welcome, Henry.
I was the, just for introduction, I was the founding chair of the 2025 Executive Committee and the Select Board representative to that committee. And I'm also now the president of the 501c3 corporation, which is the Concord 250 Corporation. And I would say that our ability to raise funds, an important factor in that is the realization that this is an independent, freestanding, nonprofit corporation, which is qualified with the state of Massachusetts, the Attorney General, and the Internal Revenue Service, and has a somewhat different slant and emphasis than the committee, and I think a lot of our ability to raise money is that the perception that we represent a more historical and conventional side of the event rather than the social and political side of the event. To date, we have raised, I have in hand, $85,000. We have pledges for another $100,000 currently in place, and so that I don't have any doubt that we will raise probably $250,000 by the time we're through, because we can keep on going until the event, unlike the sources of funding from the town meeting or the legislature, where we're done with them in July because the appropriations will have been made. Even if there were appropriations made in the subsequent year, they come too late. So
you focused a little bit about, you made a reference to, there's a focus of that funding. I guess my question in the picture here is, are any of those funds listed here as other? Would it supplement and complement what's already funded here, or?
essentially supplement as necessary, and where we can work cooperatively to meet needs that are either cannot be or will not be fulfilled by the committee or the town. And so at this point, our concentration has been on raising the money and having it available. And we have now a very, I think, a very competent board of directors, including Gary and several other members of the 2025 committee, the finance chair of the 2025 committee, and a number of people who have been quite effective in terms of representing the business community and the sources of money. So we're carrying on. We've run the most successful program so far has been the souvenir coins, which we have financed. And we have the flexibility to be able to do things that don't require appropriations, RFPs, and all of the other obstacles that get in the way of some flexibility and the ability to spend money, in a useful way.
Okay.
So as far as the expense goes, the issue with the public safety is this. The money that is necessary to provide this public safety will be spent whether it's budgeted or not.
Yeah, I think I heard all about the public safety
Yeah,
presentation, so there's been a lot of good work put into that, so I think that's a good number.
But the point there is that when we took and extrapolated what took place in 50 years ago, and we brought that up to current standards, which means not just adjusting for inflation, but adjusting for greatly increased standards of safety and professionalism, we came up with a number that was, assuming we have 125,000 people or more, we had 125,000 people 50 years ago. That expense will probably be substantially more than what has been budgeted for that
Well, let's hope
purpose.
that 725
Yeah,
is
okay.
good, because I think it's good.
But my main point, actually, the only thing I wanted to comment on here tonight was not either the budget or the changes to the committee's charge, except for one issue, and that was the change of the name.
Okay, we're going to come back to that. We're going to stay on the budget.
That's really why I'm here.
Okay,
so
that's fine.
let me
I
just-
believe.
Can I just
are
finish
you-
one more
yeah,
budget
sure.
question? So it kind of gets to the charge, but I noticed it, so Gary, I just want to ask this question around the memorials. So there's a permanent memorial that I think is going to have a longer time frame to it. Is the funding of that sort of going to go beyond this budget?
Yes.
It will, okay.
Okay.
So that's a future
Yes.
All right.
consideration for us
Yeah.
for funding. Okay, just
Yeah.
want to be
Okay.
clear about
And
that.
Terry,
Yeah.
you had some questions.
Right. So first of all, Henry, thanks a lot for joining us tonight, because we definitely have some questions, and your corporation has been really creative. I myself have bought several sets of those coins, and I'm really eager to learn the process. I'm really excited that you have raised so much money and you're going to keep going. And I want to make sure that we have a very transparent process so the select board and the public understand, even though you're a freestanding, independent nonprofit. So what I'm trying to understand is, I think you've said that you have a lot of pledges and you have money in hand and you might end up with 200,000 or more, and what the process will be for deciding, will you transfer the money to the Concord 250 group? Will you get input from them? And then you all decide what is the process going to be?
The process, two important things about the process, and that is we have been very firm about accepting no public money, including when we paid $600 to the IRS to get the fee for the 501c3. The town was willing to pay that fee, and I insisted that that fee be paid by the corporation. And the object is to maintain the separation, that we will accept no public money, and we will be making essentially grants to for various functions and for various activities, some of which are the kinds of things that either there is no funding for or no interest in doing, such as, this is just hypothetical, reviving the Patriots Ball.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? That is something we are uniquely structured to do, because we can take charge cards, we can take appreciated stock, we have a brokerage account, we have all of the facilities that the town and the committee do not have to handle money and to take fees, to sell things, to do things of that kind. There are other things that we can do, such as pay for a very significant souvenir program for the event, and we don't have to worry about some of the conflict of interest issues that have come up, for instance, with a potential relationship with the Concord magazine.
Right.
Yeah.
So do I understand?
What we have on our board of directors is John Arita, who was on the parade committee for the town committee. We have Rick Laughlin, the finance chair. We have Phil Swain, who was also the second in command of the finance committee. We have Allison Harrington, the daughter of the former congressman, who was the owner of the Colonial Inn, who's made a very significant contribution to the corporation. We have we also now have Sue McCrory, who was the chair or will be the retiring chair of the Public Ceremonies Committee, and is now currently on the 2025 committee.
Okay.
We have all these people who are involved, who we will make. We will entertain proposals.
Right. So what I'm trying to understand is, it sounds like you have some really good ideas, like the Patriots Ball and the souvenir program. And we just heard from Rob, a breakdown on the other events like arts and literature, history, education. These are the events of the main committee. Is that committee going to maybe make grants to your corporation, or is it possible that you're going to help fund those events, or you're just going to do these separate things like the Patriots Ball and the program?
Well, I think it will vary based on what the event is. We do not intend to accept funds from any of the current subcommittees.
No, I'm talking about the other way, that you might donate toward their events.
Yes, that's very possible. I mean, there are things that, for instance, that like funding concerts that may not be something within the budget.
Right.
Or productions theatrical productions. It may not be within the budget of the executive committee. I mean, I was talking early on about seeing if we could get John Williams to write some music for the event.
Yeah, so
So
is it safe to say that, look, there's a budget here, it's $1.3 million, you've got another, let's call it $250,000 that you're raising. Some of that could go to totally new events that are over and above the 1.3 million.
Right.
There might be some money that would actually replace, some of this if it went to specific events and programs that you chose to, through that.
For instance,
501c3.
we got a check for $2,500 this week for somebody who said they wanted it to be used for planning for the permanent memorial.
Yep.
Okay, so that is, so we will get some of that.
So we, as a select board, will get some more information as you evolve, some regular reports on how this is evolving?
So
It'd be nice to know if there's funds are
I'm
going to.
thinking the answer to that
The
question is
point-
that
the point
it's an
is that we
independent
are-
organization.
Right.
We are,
I know.
we are accountable to the Attorney General's
Yeah.
Division of Public Charities.
I do have some more questions for the committee about the committee's work, though, so if you're.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
But I'm happy to
Right.
stir things
So-
up if necessary.
As we were looking at the charge, and specifically number 2 and number 8 under the duties, both call for, number 2 calls for establishing a 501c3 nonprofit organization that will provide monthly reports to the select board regarding how all the funds of the organizations receives and distributes are aligned with the opportunities and needs established by the committee. So that was part of the charge of the executive committee. So I am trying to ask the direct question of, is this 501c3 that we were just talking about, that 501c3 that was in the charge to be created by the 2025 executive?
Historically, I mean, this is something I looked into.
Well,
Here-
can I ask,
You're asking the committee.
can I ask, yeah,
That's right, I
Gary
think
Clayton?
Chair's
Yeah.
asking me this one. The answer is yes, that 501c3 that was, that the board in its existing charge, and at its behest was seeking that the committee would in fact create such an entity. And so that's what it speaks to. It does not, and it's not intended to suggest that there be another separate 501c3
Okay.
entity established. We have that. It has been successfully established, and it is now operational. The change here by way of the edit is one of having the corporation make from time to time reports. We all understand we're talking about two separate legal entities. I don't want to suggest or confuse that distinction, but what seems to be important is while there's two separate entities, I believe we have the same common purpose.
Right.
And I believe
Correct.
the select board, in the various iterations of the charge that has been developed, and what I'm suggesting by way of these revisions, and ultimately your decision, that is the underlying purpose, that we share a common purpose, and that we all benefit by having the work of the corporation made publicly available. I mean, it's a public charity.
Correct.
That's any individual, let alone the select board, right, has the right to know what this public charity
Correct.
is doing and how it's raising money and for what purposes it's spending its money. And as Henry said, that information has to be submitted and shared with the Massachusetts Attorney General's office every year. I think, given the history over the past several years of setting up the executive committee, it was very much looking at both what we can do in terms of garnering governmental funds, whether they be local or state or federal, but also recognizing, for a number of the reasons Henry just outlined, the advantages of private fundraising. And but those, to me, they complement. They're not. I don't see those as they should, in my view, going down separate paths.
Correct.
We have a common purpose, but part of that purpose is, and it seems to me, for the board, to know how we're doing. How do you measure that?
Right.
And this is one way to do it.
So I understand that there's value in having a complementary organization that might be independent, just like we have the Friends of the Library,
Yep.
as well as the Library Corporation. The Library Corporation is, in my mind, something that that's an independent, that's an independent organization. But so what I'm trying to understand is, when we put in a charge that a 501c3 will be created, and that 501, that would be, at least my expectation is that that's under the control of the 2025 committee, such that if we put a requirement in this charge, which is as it reads, for monthly reporting, that we would be able to obtain that monthly reporting on a timely basis from that group. Now, there may be other groups outside that are contributing and doing whatever they want. I just want to know, when we're talking about the Concord 250, are we talking about a group that's adhering to this, or are we talking about a group that's operating independently?
Right.
Okay, well, the answer to that is certainly it is a cooperative venture.
Cooperating?
Cooperative venture, but structurally, even though it was in the original charge as an option,
Yeah.
historically at our meeting on May 12th of 2022, the minutes will show that I raised the question of evaluating the pros and cons of a nonprofit organization. There was no further discussion of that, and the committee took no action whatever on that.
Okay.
On June 23rd, the committee discussed a motion of setting up a revolving fund or nonprofit. No action was taken on that. The committee never discussed or took a vote to authorize me or anybody else to form a corporation.
Okay.
The corporation, the next event was on August 25th of 2022. The minutes show I reported on the formation of the Concord 250 Corporation. So there was never any official relationship between the two. It was an option that the committee had, but did not follow up on and did not vote to form, or to authorize. So they're freestanding, and the relationship with the select board is very similar to the Friends of the Sleepy Hollow, which does not report to the select board.
Understood. Okay, thank you, Mary.
But when you say, Henry, that it will be a cooperative relationship, I think
Absolutely.
does that cooperation include visibility to the amount of money that you've raised and integration with the needs of the executive committee?
I have no
What is
problem. I already disclosed the amount of money that we have raised and that we anticipate raising. And
Okay, let me ask it a different way then. Would it include a conversation about what mutual priorities are so that you can integrate?
we can always have a conversation.
Let me try to ask it another way. It says in the charge that, including establishing, the one Mark just read, number 2,
Yep.
a nonprofit organization that will provide monthly reports to the select board. So this is where I'm a little bit stuck. I'm wondering if the 501c3 is intending to provide any monthly reports.
The answer is, this is not that.
Exactly, that's what I thought you were going to say.
So we've established that basically the 225 committee has not actually created a 501c3, but independent of that, a 501c3 has been created.
Okay.
So I'm going to move on to my next question.
Okay.
Which is around number 8. So that goes to report its, and this is on the second,
Right.
as part of its duties, the committee shall report its activities to the select board on a periodic basis, including monthly financial reports. So we've just received what I would call a partial report for a budget. So given that we're 10 months out or 9 months out, are we going to, from here on, see these monthly reports, or do you have a different cadence recommendation that you want to make at this time?
Our expectation is that we would be providing monthly
Okay.
updates to this report.
Great.
Okay, great.
I would actually hope that there would be on our agenda monthly for
Yeah.
maybe a
Or-
10-minute.
That's a great suggestion.
A 10-minute update.
And if the corporation would like to be part of that conversation, that would be even better.
I think it has to be, it's number 2.
Well,
No, I
I
think we
don't
just
know, but I
established
guess-
it's not number 2.
Yeah.
I
But
think,
then, but who's, it will provide
think-
monthly reports too, to the select
no,
board.
no, I
No, no,
think
no,
we
no, no.
need to
We established-
wordsmith number 2 differently. I
Okay,
think
so
the
I'm-
problem with number 2 is that it says that the 501c3 will provide the reports.
Right.
And that's the problem.
Select board.
This is a charge of the Concord 250th Executive Committee.
So, yeah.
Do you have an idea of how to?
Well, I'm going to play back what I just said a
Yeah,
minute
go
ago.
ahead, please, because it wasn't heard.
The Concord 2025 Executive Committee did not on its own
Right,
create a 501c3
correct.
with the commitments that are outlined in there. And in fact, it wasn't required to, it was just identified needs plans, including,
Right.
it could have done that, but did not. And what we've heard from Henry is that independent of that,
Right.
Henry and some other
Right.
residents have gotten together and created a 501c3, but they created it outside of this structure.
Correct.
So they do not have to,
Right.
while we might be very appreciative if they did.
Right.
So I
They
guess-
were not created by the 2025 committee.
But
But I
Gary's
think you have to be more than
recommendations.
appreciating that
Right.
they might make a
Yeah.
presentation. I think you have a responsibility that, again, this enterprise, which is the celebrations, has these various components to it, including a private corporation that's actively engaged in fundraising. And they, in my view, has been that they would be the entity raising the private funds, not the executive committee. And that, therefore, to seek information from that corporation on a regular, ongoing basis should be more than please, or we hope you do it. I think you have a broader responsibility to the public, given your status.
Responsibility, yes. What I'm not clear on is what we actually can demand.
Okay, I looked into
That's a
that.
different question, right? Is sort of,
Yeah.
hey,
Right.
here's a
You're right,
501c3.
you're right.
Okay.
So Terry feels like she
Kim,
has some information.
I'm the liaison, and I've been looking into this, because I do agree with Gary. I think it's the select board's responsibility to have the maximum transparency for the public. And yet, this 501c3 is a standalone, the way it's been. So if we cannot get regular reporting from them, I'm going to propose what I asked Anthony, our finance director, what else can we do? And he's saying that Mass General Law, Chapter 53A.5, under that, a Board of Selectmen may in its sole discretion and authority accept gifts of tangible personal property, et cetera, from a charitable, I could copy the whole thing. If the Select Board so chooses, they can create a 250 celebration gift account under this section for 53A.5. So therefore, then it would be awkward. There'd be two different fundraising organizations, so it's not ideal. But then we would have the maximum transparency. So just to wrap up, my first choice is to have the effort that Henry and his group are doing. Well, they're already doing a great job, but we need some reporting, regular monthly transparent reporting, and input from the 250th, and, so that they can give input into the 501c3. If that's not possible, I am prepared to make this motion as early as our next meeting, that the select board set up this 250th celebration gift account under MGL Chapter 53.5.
Okay, can I make a comment?
Sure.
Okay, that's a good idea, Terry. It's one thing to set up a mechanism to collect, and it's another to actually get money into it.
Correct.
So,
Correct.
so I guess my question would be to the executive committee, the Concord 250 executive committee. Do you think that if we set up this separate account that you would have the ability to solicit funds for it, or is this just an exercise that we're doing for nothing?
We are stretched thin. We're volunteers. There's little in the way of formal staff support for this group. It would be challenging, to be honest, and my preference would be for us to be able to work with the
Right.
corporation to raise these funds, and if donors, as Henry mentioned, are interested in providing funding support for a particular initiative that the executive committee has identified, often in partnership with another group in town, that they
Okay.
can sort of restrict their monies to the corporation for that
Let me-
purpose.
I could, 1 second, please. One of the good things about establishing what the program budget is, the $130,000, is that we can also establish what events will fall under the auspices of the Concord 250, which then means we can go out and actively fundraise to cover whatever difference we need for that purpose. And we're prepared to do that as early as July 1. And we have a number of marketing, promotional support folks that can help us get the word out. And yes, we are stretched quite thin, and I agree with Gary that ideally we'd have a much more, or a very good kind of synergy between the two entities. But if that's not possible, then I do think we have the infrastructure set up to go out and solicit additional funds from corporation and individual donors, once
So-
we have that list set.
Mary,
Okay,
and
so
then
you-
I have a question.
Well,
And that's just,
so-
I appreciate Rob's point. We've not discussed that at the executive committee level.
No.
So you're
Exactly.
hearing a range of opinions here. on
Exactly,
this,
and we would need,
don't take any of that as-
input from that before we.
Right.
Okay, but my second, so it seems like we've got two options here. One is set up our own gift account. The other is to have a better, more cooperative relationship with the existing 501c3. Is it true, though, that many of the directors on the 501c3 are also members of the executive, of the board of directors for, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Isn't there
yes.
a lot of overlap between these two?
There is.
So, do you have the votes? I'm going to be really direct here. Do you have the votes on the corporation board of directors in order to get the kind of cooperation we're looking
Yeah,
for?
I think it's important to recognize that those who serve as trustees for the corporation have a fiduciary responsibility with respect to their role as a trustee of the corporation. So,
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
I
So
think
Okay.
I'll leave it at that.
I actually have a question for the town manager. Just a minute.
It's still a
Yeah.
voluntary act on the part of the trustees, not the trustees, the directors of the corporation to decide what and how they're going to disclose or discuss and how they're going to operate. And it doesn't make any sense for there to be two competing private fundraising
Correct.
organizations going out there. It's difficult enough for one to operate.
That's right.
Yeah.
And this is why I
Right.
had the objection to the adoption of the name for the executive committee, which was, confusing
No.
Okay.
the two
Okay.
Thank you.
organizations.
I have a question actually for the town manager and the finance director maybe. The town operates a number of gift accounts today, and if you could just expound a little bit on that mechanism, is it fair to presume that that would take advantage of the staff at the Treasury, and that someone who hypothetically wanted to make a contribution to such a gift account could simply, send their contributions directly to the town using the mechanisms that they're already familiar with?
Yeah, we have no problem being able to process payments for a gift account.
Yeah.
If that's the question.
And then once it was a gift account, then it could show up as an additional source of funds in the budget that we've seen outlined today, and fall directly under the purview of the committee with supervision from the accounting department. Thank you. Okay.
I also want to point out one other detail, which is, I think there's confusion maybe in the public because, for example, when I bought my coins, I bought them at the visitor center. And the visitor center is a town, I believe, town building, is that correct?
Yes.
So it's, in that sense, it's not seeming 100% separate. Because if you're someone who wants to contribute to the 250th, you go into the town building, the visitor center, you buy these coins to support the 250th celebration. I think that you're entitled to reports and transparency after doing that.
Do we want to summarize what we think the actions might be out of this section of the discussion?
We're not voting tonight, are we?
Well, we have before us an amended charge.
Okay, so do you want to talk
we-
about that?
Yeah, let's do the charge.
Okay, so
As far as this
maybe
gift account thing, I think
Okay.
that would be, Terry,
in
I mean,
addition to that.
I think we would wait
Yeah.
until the executive committees talked about that
Yeah.
Yeah,
before we move on.
yeah, I think we should do the charge
Great,
tonight.
good,
Okay.
okay, let's do the
Okay.
charge.
All right, so moving on to comments and questions about the amended charges published in the packet. Does anybody want to start?
Well, I think the 250 committee did an excellent job, and I agree really with all of their proposed changes in the red line version, except, as I said before, in that number 2, we may need to wordsmith exactly how this reporting gets done, and possibly add also in that same bullet how the 250th committee will have a say. For example, I wrote some language, work closely with the 501c3 to submit proposals and recommendations for their consideration. So that we explicitly spell out that the executive committee has a role and input into the decisions made by the 501c3.
Well, so my reading of that section suggests that a 501c3 is an option, but I don't read anything in there that suggests that if the executive committee, for example, were to decide that they wanted to support the notion of a gift account, that they couldn't comply with that by doing, because it's just including establishing a 501c3. And the organization in the third line there is a little ambiguous, but can easily be read to be the Concord 250 Executive Committee.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because I think the point on number 2 is it's unclear whether there is
Right.
a decision that you would want to establish a separate. So, I
Yeah.
mean, if, just language-wise, if you said something like including the possibility of, or including consideration of,
Right.
because it's not mandating like that there, another separate 501c3 get established.
In fact,
But I thought we weren't even thinking of another 501c,
weren't.
I think we were
the
either.
gift account,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
We're
Well, in
talking
which
about,
case, you could even just take that out.
Take out include.
right.
we could get rid of
right.
it, but
It's
but the
501c3.
point of number 2 is to cover the option for private fundraising.
Yes.
And the private fundraising by the committee itself could in fact include people making donations to a gift account, in which case those would be accounted for and reported on and support that
Well, in
mission.
which case you can simplify to identify funding needs and a plan for both town and private funding options,
Right.
period.
Yeah, but I think that what we want to put in number 2 is that there's going to be monthly reports coming from both the executive committee and the fundraising body.
Which is very simply outlined in number 8, actually.
Yes, I think it's covered, Terry.
Yeah.
We're not, I think we've.
Number 8 doesn't cover the, it only,
It's report activities.
it only covers the executive
Donations,
committee.
Including monthly financial reports.
From the executive committee, though, but how do we bring in the nonprofit or the fundraising into this? I don't know if we can.
Has this been approved by the executive committee?
Yes.
This version? Okay, thank you. So we might amend it. We might be amending it. Well, we are amending it.
It's like the word's charge.
We are.
Yeah. They're making a recommendation.
Yeah.
Okay, so we need to wordsmith number 2. Identify funding needs and plan for both town and private funding.
I think there's 2 different issues in number 2, and I think we're confusing
Well, suppose
ourselves.
we said,
What are they?
sorry.
The
go ahead.
2 issues are whether, forget for a minute that we might create another, because we're not doing that right now. Let's just go with what we have right now.
Right.
How is that current structure going to do monthly reports?
It's not.
Right. Who is submitting these monthly reports? Because
It's
this
not.
wording says that the 501c3 submits the reports. That doesn't make sense.
I took from our conversation that the 501c3 that we have established now was not the one that was established by this original charge.
Correct.
Therefore, there is none to give
Right.
monthly
So we need
reports.
to
So-
change the wording on number 2.
So
Yeah.
What was the intent of this change then?
the intent of this change was to see if we could, in fact, ask for the existing 501c3,
Right,
which
okay.
we originally thought was part of.
Kind of asking Gary this question, right?
Oh, sorry.
Right. Yeah.
The intent is to ensure that the board, on behalf of all the residents of Concord, understand and have some information about the scope and nature of the private fundraising through the corporation and how those funds being raised privately are being dispersed.
So it was your
You don't have an
intention-
ability, I'm not suggesting that you have ability
Yep.
to approve or disapprove
Right.
the decisions of the corporation in that regard. It's a matter of simply understanding what money's been raised, how much, and how it's being spent. And That's
We
that's
want that.
transparency.
So I'm just,
But here's
You
what we
want
keep
that,
coming
but-
back to, is
Right.
we might want that, but I don't think we can
We-
write in that our committee,
Unless,
Well, actually, we're writing in we're telling another committee to do what we, not even sure we have a right to ask
that's what I'm
for.
But
saying.
unless-
I
Yes,
don't
that's
think
what
we can go
yes.
tell another separate 501c3 what to do.
Right.
We can ask for cooperation. We can say, hey, we'd really like to work together and we
Yes.
want to hear from you. But at the end of the day, we can't
right.
write in
And-
that demand.
To,
can ask them to
and
coordinate collaboratively.
if I imagine a hypothetical donor who wants that kind of transparency, then that hypothetical donor might be advised to make a donation to the town gift account where we can in fact ensure those kinds of things are happening.
If that was,
I think that should be our
that's a
backup
separate,
plan.
yeah, that's a separate issue
Yeah.
from.
I think
from
if
this
we
document.
don't get monthly reports and enough transparency, then our backup plan is going to be, I hope we don't need it, but that
Need
could be
what, Terry?
to set up another gift
Well, we got to
account.
decide soon.
Well, are you ready to decide right now?
No, but I'm ready to decide by our next meeting.
Correct.
Okay.
So, okay, where are we right now? We're trying to figure out, are
We're
we
trying
going
to
to wordsmith
decide,
this charge?
yeah,
or-
are we gonna, do we want to change 2 now on the fly? Or do we want to postpone that, or do we want to accept it as it is and then realize that we may need to take another crack at it?
Well, it's not correct as it is. It
Okay,
doesn't
so how
make
would you
any
change it,
sense.
Terry? Number 2, it's number 2 that you'd like to.
Yeah, it says that this 501c3 is going to provide reports.
Only if it was established by the 2025 committee, which it was not.
Right, exactly.
So-
Yes,
Why is
yes.
it even in here then?
Well,
Because,
because it allows for the possibility that one could be, but at this stage of the game, I'm hearing from the committee that that's unlikely to be the route they would go.
Right.
But maybe I'm putting words in their mouth.
To be discussed.
Okay.
And
So do we want to take that option off the table?
How about we just say, identify funding needs and a plan for both town and private funding, including establishing a 501c3, we just leave it in there as a possibility, and/or a town gift account that will provide monthly reports to
Right.
the select board.
Okay, that's
Okay.
really good.
Including options such as,
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good.
Including,
including options such as establishing a 501c3.
And/or
Okay.
a town
And/or-
gift, great.
okay.
And we have.
Yeah, I see
an
Shannon
idea from-
furiously typing.
We have
She's
an
doing the
idea
best.
from
Say it one more
Diane.
time. Including
Okay.
options such as a town gift account.
Establishing a
Yeah.
501c3 nonprofit
nonprofit.
organization, I think Mary said
And/or a town
And/or
gift
town
account,
That will provide in the rest of
monthly
the
reports to
same.
the select board, right.
Yeah, that's good.
Yep.
And I
Okay,
think
good,
Diane
good.
has a comment too.
May I make a comment?
Yes, please.
Thank you. I think issues of transparency are critical here.
Mhm.
And when you mention that it's essential. I think of the Middlesex Savings Bank, for instance, when they donated money, I don't know that they understood that that money was not going to be under the control of the Concord, I don't think they knew that it was not going to be under the control of the Concord Executive Committee.
Right.
And
Right.
so it really is terribly important that we be very clear about those kinds of resources and those kind of donations, because otherwise I think we're going to be misleading the broader population. Thank you.
Thank you. Since I paused for a comment, I will give others an opportunity to comment as well if there's anyone else that wants to make a comment based on the discussion we've had so far before we proceed to a vote around the updated charge.
Can I just
Yes.
ask, just, so it was Concord 2025, it's now Concord 250, I don't know the history of like, why is that a change?
Because
Why is
the work of the executive committee early on was to look at and think about how best to describe our work and how to brand it.
Okay.
And what was established by early 2023 was a set of actions that would do that. And they include, if you step right outside this room, that screen that's been standing there for months says Concord 250. The annual town report for 2023 is that same image and speaks to Concord 250. That is how we have been marketing it in these media, certainly with social media accounts and the like. It's, that's the explanation, and that's what we have used. I don't see, with all due respect to Mr. Dane, that has to be a point of confusion. If we are cooperating together, we understand we have a common goal and need. I don't think that has to be a point of, that distinction has to somehow conflict with or impede fundraising activity.
One remark on that.
Yes, please.
I have absolutely no problem with the entire venture being under the the trademark, if you will, of Concord 250, but that doesn't mean that the town's executive committee should have that name, which is the same name as another independent organization which was formed at least a year before this trademark or branding was adopted. So there are two separate issues. One is, yes, refer to the whole thing as Concord 250, but that doesn't mean it should be the name of the committee. So I think it helps to indicate that there is this distinction, and I don't know what success the town would have by asking people to contribute to a gift account. I think that's an option that always existed.
Yeah.
So that's not really nothing new.
Right.
But I think the other point to keep in mind is that that we have the town's website that does still use the terminology Concord 2025. And I've heard from a number of the members of this board their frustration with the lack of clarity relative to how we as a community are presenting ourselves to the public, to the world at large. This is one step to correct it. I'm not saying that's going to solve all of our issues in that regard, but if we can't even do that, then please don't ask me about this in terms of the website anymore.
Okay.
Okay. Shannon, I saw you had the updated language on the screen, and I wanted to make one comment on it, so if you don't mind bringing it back. Also, isn't it likely that these 250 activities actually go a little bit beyond the calendar year 2025? Because most of the nation will really get serious about 250 in 2026.
Yeah.
Right, and if I'm not mistaken, right, the charge speaks to that, recognizing that the expectation of the select board in the past, and I assume going forward still, is that we're looking at 250th through the year 2026, because it's the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence.
So just on the updated language highlighted in red here, I think I heard Mary's proposal to use the words and/or, right, where you have between organization and establishing. Thank you. Okay. Maybe zoom in a little bit, just for the 9 o'clock eyes.
So I think this charge is really good, and I just want to propose one other sentence that could go, I don't know where, but one of the other duties of the committee is, I think, to work closely with the 501c3 to submit proposals and recommendations for their consideration. And I know it's implied, but I think it should be spelled out in their charge.
So are you saying that the town executive committee should be applying to the 501c3 for funding?
That's one thing, or they might, Gary and I were talking earlier, he had an idea about, I can't remember what it was, but some process thing about forms or formalizing how the grant system works. So they might be applying for grants, they might be recommending process things. They're going to be, I want something spelled out explicitly that they're going to work closely and cooperatively. So I have this language that can be amended. Work closely with the 501c3 to submit proposals and recommendations for their
Do
consideration.
you have to name that 501c?
Sure, yeah.
The one
That's a
that you're
good
talking-
idea.
Your intention.
That's a good
because
idea. I
The
think
other
that-
one, statement
The
up
Concord
above is
250
different. Yeah,
Corp.
just name it.
It's the
so
Concord
you're-
250 Corporation.
Right, the Concord
Confusion about
250.
whether we're trying to
right,
set another one.
Exactly.
Exactly, the Concord 250 Core, it should say.
I don't have a problem with that. I mean, because you're asking the executive
We're
committee
asking
Right,
to
yeah.
work closely with.
Yeah,
Okay,
To try to work with them.
Right.
That's fine.
great.
You're right.
Okay.
Right.
so, slowly.
Okay, work closely with the 200,
Concord 250 Corporation on recommendations and proposals.
right, work closely with the Concord 250th organization to submit proposals and recommendations for their consideration.
Okay.
Good. That's good.
For their consideration.
So in other words, they're not going to tell the corporation what to do, but they're going to have a lot of input.
Yeah.
Have you thought
Why
of
not?
that?
Why
Thought
not?
of that?
Sure.
That's
Okay,
right.
great.
That's exactly
You
it.
can always ask them for money.
Yep, that's great. That's great.
All right. Anything else from anyone?
No, I think this is good.
All right.
All right.
Do I
Would you
have
like
a motion? Yes.
Move to approve the Concord 250 Executive Committee proposed charge as included in the Select Board meeting packet and amended during our discussion.
Second,
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you very much.
Thank you, all of you.
Appreciate
A lot
you
of
all.
work.
We'll see you next month. Let's
Yeah,
get
we'll
to see
look,
We
we'll
will.
look forward to,
We will.
Now it's gonna be a month.
We will. 10 minutes.
we'll
They're
we'll
coming
look
by.
forward to hearing your progress.
Okay.
Okay, we have one, hopefully not,
Big item.
is it big?
It is big.
It's not that big.
It's old.
Okay, we have
It's
an
not big, it's
update on
old.
self-service table for issuance. for issuing RFPs for cell service, and that'll be presented by Megan Zabuto.
Yes, thank you. In your packet, you have a memo that starts on page 73, which outlines our new strategy for improving cell service in town. I outlined 3 areas that have been identified as needing coverage improvement, starting with Concord Center, and next is, I was calling it South Central Concord. It's really the area around Route 2, the landfill, and Concord Carlisle High School, and finally West Concord. So, at town meeting, there was an overwhelming vote for the citizens petition to support a request for proposals at the landfill, and the sentiment seemed to be from the questions and comments at town meeting were that we really should be moving towards solving this problem using municipal property. And so the strategy before you is just that. And it outlines a plan for request for proposals to improve coverage in these 3 areas over the summer, starting with a request for proposals that we intend to issue at the Emerson Umbrella and the Cupola located at 40 Stowe Street this June.
Okay. Good.
So can I just ask a question? What's changed with the umbrella? Because we did this before and then it didn't happen. So has there been more discussion? I don't mean to open a can of worms, but
yeah, go ahead.
Maybe I'll respond because I was here in 2017, 2018, and the then town manager brought that proposal forward, and this board stopped it. So it has always been the number 1 site to solve the problem.
Why?
In the center.
Why
Why
did-
did this board stop it? Because of feedback from residents.
Got it.
In talking to Jerry Wedge, the outgoing executive director at
Yep.
the Umbrella, they at the same time had their expansion project going that was somewhat controversial, and the neighborhood was anxious about it at the time, and I think that certainly didn't help.
Right.
Two things, and two things I'll say, then I'll shut up and let Megan get back to it. We have, the issue that we have in all of these locations impacts multiple carriers. We need multiple sites in each location. So we have been, in good faith, earnestly working with Tricon. And it's been, I think Megan mentioned 16 months. It's been a long time, and for all intents and purposes, the negotiations are not really any further along than they were 13 months ago. There is opposition in some way, shape, or form to every site that we will put forward. And to be honest, it does feel that the community holds the staff responsible for not moving these projects forward, and we are trying to be responsive to the various requests. I think what's changed for us is we hear this day in and day out, but we heard town meeting loud and clear. We want to move forward with these projects, and we know that unfortunately Verizon is most interested in Emerson Umbrella, and we know by opening Emerson Umbrella that's going to upset whatever negotiations are happening at Tricon.
Right.
But there's an opportunity for another carrier to be there
At Tricon.
at Tricon.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yes.
The other thing is, it's not a foregone conclusion that the winner of an RFP for Emerson Umbrella would be who that would be.
Correct.
Right.
It's an RFP.
Can we,
Right, it's an RFP.
Gotta go with the,
It's all
gotta go get
open.
the.
Is it
can we
possible?
specify in the RFP that they have to do it quickly? Like, no, I'm serious. I'm serious.
We included a component in the RFP for the applicants to outline their timeline with the understanding that we're the
Provide a
most,
short-term
the
solution.
shortest timeframe would score higher on our.
Perfect, thank you.
Great.
Is it possible that an RFP at the Umbrella would not only upset Tricon negotiations, but might move it along at Tricon? Because I mean,
It's possible. I would say it's probably not likely based on the feedback we've received from Verizon's representative to date.
If, I have another question, the landfill, so we're going to do an RFP for the landfill, right? Or that's what you're talking about here. Does that, I've heard different things, does that provide coverage for the high school campus?
It's not the best coverage for the
Okay.
high school.
I mean, I guess
So-
we'll learn more on the RFP, but yeah, it's.
Because
Based on our coverage maps, it wasn't identified as a site that would best
So
serve that
should we re-engage the school committee with doing something on that campus? If we really are serious about getting coverage?
I don't think we ever stopped. I don't think
Okay.
we've ever stopped in engaging.
Okay.
But we can only advance projects where we have site control. We have willing partners in site control.
Got it.
And this is, the landfill is better, something at the landfill is better than what we have now.
Okay,
Yep.
okay, thank you.
And so when you do I know that you talked later in here about hiring a consultant, will that do the balloon tests also so that we'll know exactly what kind of coverage that these vendors are going to need? Because that seemed to be the issue, sort of at the high school. The maps were really old and no one really knew what the coverage was going to be.
I'm not sure if that was an issue, yes, we can we'll certainly do balloon tests.
Well,
at all
they'll
the
be
sites.
updated, I guess, that what we did
We have
was old.
coverage maps for all of these areas. The only ones we don't have them for is West Concord that are recent. So we have coverage maps
Okay.
for,
The balloon test really was for sightline for the bridge. It wasn't related to coverage, it was for.
Yeah, I just thought at the high
site.
school, there were a bunch
Yeah,
of old
the-
maps
the
used, and there
carriers-
was a comment about.
Okay.
Yeah, the
Certainly.
carriers will
Yeah.
do their
They'll
own
do it.
RF studies, is
Okay,
what
RF
it's called,
studies, yeah.
to identify what coverage they can expect from a given site. And it's different by carrier because each carrier has a different amount of spectrum or part of the spectrum that's actually allocated to them. So that's part of their calculations as to what the value of any particular site that's proposed is. And as Carrie was mentioning, the balloon test really is about, the visual impact of putting any size facility in a particular location. Of course, that applies to everyone.
so what about the public safety building? There are site constraints?
Yeah, serious ones.
Really, I don't even think they
It
can,
can't go on a roof or on the land somewhere around
It's a
there?
very tight,
really.
What about the roof?
Somebody has to leave if
I
somebody
mean,
wants to go
we
in.
have infrastructure on the roof.
yeah.
Okay.
We did, you may recall that, I don't know, a year or two ago, we tried to bid on property, is it the Rapoli?
Yeah.
There was a piece of landlocked
Missed it.
property
We missed it,
generally
and we didn't get
behind
it. We didn't get it.
public safety, and we
That's
missed
right.
out on that.
That's right, we missed it, yeah. What's going to happen there, do you know? Okay.
No.
So there isn't anything we need to, this is just an update. right?
No,
This is just
We don't have to
the
approve
sense
something.
of the
Yeah.
board
Yeah,
is,
yeah, no, that's
yes.
great.
Well, we
That's
really
great.
appreciate
of the board
you
is-
guys moving this forward.
I-
It's really,
Yes.
Really.
everyone
I mean,
is going to
especially
be
if
so
we're moving
appreciative.
on the RFPs and getting
Yeah.
information.
Really, thank you.
Definitely, yeah.
Great,
So
it's a
thank
lot
you.
of work.
I think to Wendy's question about what's changed, there has certainly been a shift, I think a detectable shift since 2017
Yeah.
about what the community sentiment is about the relative value versus, whatever other
I hope
concerns
so.
there might be about these
Yep.
facilities.
great.
Okay,
Okay.
all right.
All right,
Hearing a motion to adjourn.
yes, so moved.
Second.
Aye,
Aye. Thank you all for coming.
thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Mark,
you.
for running the meeting.